United in their grief, members of a club no one would voluntarily join. Tracy Martin and Sabrina Fulton, parents of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, stand shoulder to shoulder with Doreen Lawrence, mother of 18-year-old black teenager Stephen Lawrence, who was killed by white racists in 1993. Both families joining forces to highlight continued injustice both in the U.S. and UK. United in their shared experience, they said they drew strength from each other's struggle.
A lot of people have said to us that they know how we feel and they sympathize with us. Until you have lost a child, it is very difficult for you to really understand how we feel and the hurt and the pain that we have.
Nobody really knew how I felt. And it's difficult to explain unless you've been in that position, unless you've lost somebody who's very dear to you. And I think it's the way in which we've lost our children. They didn't die because they were ill. They didn't die from an accident. They died because somebody deliberately went out and took their life.
The case of two young black men, 18 years and an ocean apart, cut down in their prime and failed by a system that should have protected them, has struck a chord for civil rights movement both in the UK and the US. Zita Holborn, one of the organizers of the event, says the similarities go even further.
These are young black teenagers who were murdered, who were victims of racism, and they were killed because of their colour and their race. And both boys' families are now having to fight for justice.
I am Trayvon Martin. I am Trayvon Martin.
The families later joined other activists to thank them for their support and to call on both governments to stop paying just lip service to equality and to act to save more young lives. Those gathered to honor the lives of Trayvon Martin, Stephen Lawrence, and others killed in senseless racist attacks say even one life taken is one life too many. And to make this dignified stance within spitting distance of some of the most honored institutions in British political life, well, that speaks volume. Justice for both Trayvon Martin and Stephen Lawrence has been slow. In January 2012, Gary Dobson and David Norris were found guilty of Stephen's murder. Neighborhood volunteer George Zimmerman is awaiting trial in Trayvon's untimely death.
Signal in the end, for now they must transcend, seeking peace in a better...
Until young men like Trayvon and Stephen can walk the streets of their respective neighborhoods without fear of harm, campaigners warn these names will not be the last.
Evil of prejudice and racism stamp on the hatred of discrimination.
Amina Taylor, Press TV, London.
Happening right now at 6. In just the past few minutes, the attorney for George Zimmerman was given thousands of pages of never-before-seen evidence in the case against his client.
That evidence is expected to reveal major new details about the night Zimmerman shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Channel 9's Kathy Bellich is covering this developing story live at the office of Zimmerman's attorney in downtown Orlando tonight. And Kathy, this comes as George Zimmerman could also be facing new charges. What's happening?
That's absolutely right. The FBI is looking into a possible hate crime charge, but Zimmerman's lawyer just told me minutes ago that he has received his first delivery of prosecution documents. He's received a witness list, among other things, with 22 witnesses listed as only numbers to protect their identity. He believes there are recorded interviews that he's gotten with witnesses. He's gotten police reports, and he believes he's also gotten other reports, but he hasn't even had a chance to open it yet.
If George Zimmerman is found guilty of second-degree murder, he could go to prison for the rest of his life. But if he's charged and found guilty of a federal hate crime involving murder, he could face the death penalty. Channel 9 has learned FBI investigators have been questioning witnesses in Zimmerman's neighborhood about what happened the night he shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. The teenager was not armed. Zimmerman said he was attacked and in fear for his life. Some accused accused Zimmerman of targeting Martin because he was African American, but federal prosecutors would have to prove it was racially motivated beyond every reasonable doubt. WFTV legal analyst Bill Schaefer says that is unlikely based on the evidence we've heard so far.
At this juncture, it looks like George Zimmerman has mentored African American youths and that he has an African American relative in his family.
This photograph recently surfaced, which is said to show Zimmerman's mother in the arms of her grandfather, Zimmerman's great-grandfather, who was African American. Zimmerman's mother testified at his bond hearing that she has met the African American child whom he mentored, and that he even risked his safety in a dangerous neighborhood to do it because he did not want to abandon the child.
Now, state prosecutors say Zimmerman gave several inconsistent statements to Sanford police about what happened the night he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Well, now Zimmerman's attorney will see just what those inconsistencies are, and hopefully we will see them soon as well. Reporting live in Orlando, Kathy Belich, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Fabricated social disorder.
Marcus Fiella's journey to his arrest in connection with leading a neo-Nazi group allegedly planning a race war has its roots 2 decades ago in Palm Bay. Sometime in his teenage years, Fiella, a former junior ROTC member at Palm Bay High School, joined the Melbourne chapter of the Confederate Hammer Skinheads, a racist hate group operating in southern Brevard County. The group was suspected of threatening to kill black police officers, among other incidents in the early 90s, though members of the group were not charged. Eventually, Fiella married Patricia Swaim of Broward County. The couple, who was affiliated with the group, the Neo-Nazi American Front, lived in Palm Bay in the early 90s, but bought 2 acres of land in rural Osceola County in 2004. Marcus Fiella talked of turning the area into a, quote, Aryan compound, where American Front members could live once the U.S. government failed. It was on these 2 acres where Fiella allegedly led a group of American Front members in parliamentary training in preparation for an expected race war. The group also trained here for an attack on a rival group in downtown Melbourne on May 1st. That attack never happened, but the plot led to the arrest of the Fiellas, as well as 9 other American Front members. The Fiellas were able to quickly bond out, while most of the other members remain in jail. Patricia Fiella was rearrested Friday after Osceola County officials realized she was released on just a $5,000 bond because of a clerical error. The judge had not intended to set bail so low, a court spokesman said.
First at 11, captain demoted. A Miami-Dade fire rescue captain accused of posting controversial comments on his Facebook page. Now new tonight, he says those were not his words. Good evening, I'm Shannon Horry.
And I'm Elliot Rodriguez. Brian Beckman says the words that caused so much controversy were actually cut and pasted from a website. Still, those words cost him his rank of captain. CBS 4's Gio Benitez is live for us in Doral with the story. Gio?
Elliot, even though Beckman says he did not write the message, he did admit to posting it, and for that, he apologized. Brian Beckman's Facebook page sparked anger and protests.
What's wrong with you, Mr. Beckman? We shouldn't have to fire you. You should just leave.
Instead, the county has demoted the former fire captain to firefighter for posting a message on Facebook after Special Prosecutor Angela Corey announced the second-degree murder charge against George Zimmerman, the man who police say shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Beckman's post asked if, quote, urban youths are victims of racist profiling or products of their failed, ignorant, pathetic, welfare-dependent excuses for parents. The post also suggested Beckman's co-workers thought the same. But in an interview with his HR department, Beckman said he copied and pasted the message from another website, telling HR, quote, I was reading things that evoked a response in me that made me want to share it. These were not my words. This week, Beckman sent a memo to his fire chief apologizing for the post. He wrote that his family had suffered tremendously. Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez did release this statement saying, quote, the comments made by Captain Beckman were reprehensible and will not be tolerated. We can't have our employees, especially a supervisor, making such disparaging comments about any member of our community. We did call Mr. Beckman today, but he has not yet returned our calls. We're live at Miami-Dade Fire Headquarters. I'm Gio Benitez, CBS 4 News.
Nobody will be missed.
We're just amazed that something like this could happen to our 18-year-old son right before his graduation, right after his senior prom last week.
What is your version?
My version is that my son was shot 3 times and murdered. We don't know the timing of the shooting or how the shooting went in order. We don't know if the policeman shot himself first, last, or when. We don't have any. We gotta wait till they get their story together to fit. We want justice. My son's murdered. The other guy said the police came up on them with guns drawn for no reason at all. Scared my son, he ran. They said the police told them that my son shot at them is the reason why he was shot.
The community is coming together because this is a senseless murder. I respect authority. My son respected authority. He knew that if he pointed or shot at a police that he would be killed. He was far more intelligent than that. But to be a person that's supposed to protect and serve, he didn't question them. He didn't say, come here, why are you guys standing? And anyway, if you're just standing at the corner waiting for a ride, why is that a crime? Why do you have to, there's all kinds of things going on. It's just 3 young guys standing, 3 black guys standing out. And for whatever reason, they were harassed. Now that's the start. I want to know why he was harassed. I want to know why after you shot him down, why did the paramedics were called and they go to attend the police officer whose foot is bleeding instead of trying to give life support to a young kid? I want to know why they didn't know who he was when he carried a wallet with his ID, name, student ID.
For Alan! Justice for Alan! Say justice for Alan! Justice for Alan! Say justice for Alan!
The family of a man shot and killed by Oakland police claim he never pointed a gun at an officer, but authorities say witnesses have a different story. Alan Dwayne Bluford was killed early Sunday morning after being chased by police. ABC 7 News reporter Alan Wong is live with the story tonight. Alan.
Yeah, Dan, behind me is the corner of 90th and Birch where it all started. The family of the victim and about 20 supporters marched down the street to the place where police shot and killed Alan Bluford. He was an 18-year-old student at Skyline High School in Oakland. He and 2 other friends were standing on the corner shortly after midnight Sunday morning. Now, according to police, 2 officers say they thought one of the men had a gun, so they decided to stop them. That's when police say all 3 took off running. One officer chased Bluford for about 2 blocks, and that's when he shot him 3 times while accidentally shooting himself in the foot. Police say there are multiple witnesses who saw Bluford point a gun at the officer. They say a pistol was recovered from the scene, and it doesn't look like it was fired. Bluford's father says he was at a friend's house where they had just finished watching the Floyd Mayweather boxing match.
I talked to him 15 minutes. He called me before this incident happened. I asked him what he was doing. I told him Oakland is not a good place to be, man. He said, I told him to be careful. He said, Dad, I'm okay. I'm just waiting on some girls in a Chrysler. I said, okay, man. He said, well, I'm coming to get my phone. He left his phone with me. And he never made it.
Now, the question to me, without knowing more, is where was the gun in relationship at the time he got shot? Was it in his pocket, in his pants, or not?
Now, Oakland Police Department spokesperson says he does not know exactly where that gun was found, and he declined an on-camera interview. They say Alan Bluford was on juvenile probation for a felony burglary out of San Joaquin County. Now, I'm told the 2 other people who were involved were detained by police and questioned for 6 hours. There's a whole lot more to this, and we're going to get into it tonight at 11. I'm Alan Wong reporting live in Oakland, ABC 7 News.
All right, thanks, Alan.
I know the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
I have a dream today.
that one day little black boys and black girls.
This is Sean King, a second grader at Meridian Ranch Elementary.
I liked it. I was sorting for it.
He's all dressed up for a class presentation.
I worked very hard. I did try my best. I have a dream today. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation.
Sean is portraying a historical figure assigned by his teacher.
Well, Martin Luther King Jr.
He said, Mom, I want to wear a suit because that's what he wore, and a black tie, and I have to wear a white shirt. And he said, also I want to do my face in black.
I want to be like it because I thought it was a fun project to do.
His black face paint landed him and his parents in the principal's office.
They thought it was inappropriate and it would be disrespectful to black people. But I say that it's not. I like black people. I don't want to be mean to them. It's just a costume. I don't want to insult anybody.
The school district says a staff member and some students were offended by the face paint.
When other students are offended by something, it's really the principal's role to make sure that the educational environment is safe for all the students.
But students were never mentioned in the complaint, according to Sean's parents. They were told it was a female staff member who was offended. Other parents, including a PTA member, said there was no problem with Sean's face paint.
It's not about them. This was about a second grade class and their project. It had nothing to do with the woman that was taking it the wrong way. And I think she needs to realize the bigger picture. If my own son had been chosen to be Martin Luther King, he's a blonde, I would have gotten him a black wig, and I probably would have painted his face too.
I don't think there's another way.
Despite an outcry of support, Sean was still asked to wash his face, but his parents refused and pulled him out of school.
I think it's pretty sad that you've got a principal, you've got faculty members that are acting the way they are when they should be the ones setting the example for the children.
I learned something when I went into that office. Don't be afraid. Have a strong voice.
He's proud. He's proud of what he did, and I'm proud of what he did, too.
In Colorado Springs, Samantha Anderson, ABC News.
What's long and black? An unemployment line. What do you call a Mexican that doesn't own a lawnmower? Unemployed.
Tonight, the search is on for vandals who've left a mess of graffiti, some of it racist, all over a local college campus. And right now, campus police are turning to the web to help nab the suspects. UW-Stout is offering a $2,500 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible.
WEAU's Aaron Dimmick talked to the university and students about the vandalism. He's in the newsroom with tonight's Neighborhood Crime Alert. Aaron?
Judy and Sarah, although the graffiti has been cleaned up, the racism displayed is still causing lots of concern on a campus that students say is diverse and welcoming. UW-Stout Chief of Police Lisa Walters says it all started on April 15th with graffiti scattered across the athletic campus.
3 different types of paint used, a white and 2 different colors blue, but one of them appeared that it used some sort of a stencil. The second one was very troubling.
On May 4th, Chief Walters says a vandal broke into the football stadium overnight and wrote "colored" and "white" over 2 water fountains on the 2nd floor, among other crude scribblings. One of it says colored, one of it says white. Today we showed pictures of the graffiti to UW-Stout students.
I think that there would be more sensitive people to those types of issues on the campus.
Just very alarming since we come from such a small community.
We got it cleaned up and painted over immediately.
But Chief Walters says they're going beyond a new coat of paint. Photos of the graffiti have been posted on the Dunn County Crime Stoppers website. New launching point to text, call or email in tips on crime. And it doesn't stop there. The University Foundation, a private fundraising organization, has offered a $2,500 reward for information in the cases.
It's all very disconcerting. We just want to find the people that did this, and make sure that they're properly prosecuted.
I like the fact that Stout is trying to get to the bottom of this because racism, I never thought would be in this area, and it's mean.
Police believe the 2 vandalism cases are not related. We have a link to Dunn County Crime Stoppers website on our website, weau.com. In the newsroom, Aaron Dimmick, WEAU 13 News.
A poor black person meets a white person and suddenly their life is better. A poor black person meets a white person and now they can get their shit together. White people to the rescue. What would we do without you? You make all our dreams come true. White people to
My name is Issa Rae, and I'm a producer, writer, director, most known for my web series, The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl.
My name is Jay, and I'm awkward and black. Someone once told me those were the two worst things anyone could be.
The series is called The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. So Jay is obviously black and deals with people sort of misunderstanding her and her race.
Am I dating the founder of the KKK?
So her ethnic identity plays a huge role in her feeling awkward.
Hey! I'm so glad you...
Awkward. Is there any proper way to play off waving to the wrong person?
She is the prototypical awkward black girl who navigating through life, love, and just ridiculously uncomfortable situations like going to a party and not being able to dance. She's looking for love in sometimes all the wrong places. She hates her job, but she makes it work. She loves gangster rap. She's very passive aggressive. She uses rap to sort of get over these uncomfortable situations.
Awkward moments.
And she's just this character who we can all relate to. The issues that she goes through are universal, but specific in a sense to her race. But she's just, you can't help but to empathize with her. I decided to make this series just because I didn't really see anyone that I could relate to on television. But there were never any characters of color that I really felt like I could identify with. So it was just a selfish endeavor. I decided to create someone that was me. I honestly don't think that mainstream media is ready for Jay as is right now. I think that Jay would be watered down on network television just because she is a little too real. She is a little too blunt with her thoughts, and I don't think she fits the archetype of what we're seeing for black women of color on television just yet. And so until there's more of a representation of different multidimensional black women or women of color in general on television, I don't think that Jay will stand a chance. The show has demonstrated to me that there are tons of awkward black girls out there, and I never would have imagined that. But just the response alone and the community that this show has formed is amazing.
It's odd, but what can I say? I'm awkward.
Because we have been quite convinced that white people are going to have the power forever. That's one of the scary things about what's going on right now is by the year, 2040, white people will have lost their numerical majority in the United States of America. And we are scared to death. What if people of color get power and they want to do to us what we have done to them? We've got to stop doing what we're doing, if for no other reason than for self-preservation.
I see a lot of evidence that for and I mean like 99.9% of white people that I've talked with, that I've seen, just judging by the behavior, white people view white supremacy as their means of self-preservation. It seems, and I'm just going by the logic, it seems that most of the white people, they have just concluded that they need to continue to practice the system of white supremacy in order to preserve the quote-unquote white race. Most of the white people that I've talked to, and just, as I said, just making an evaluation based on what I see, they view the end of white supremacy, that would mean the annihilation of the white race. And some white people have said as much. Many of them have been very explicit about that.
Absolutely. And what do you think the Right to Life movement is all about?
Wow.
You really think it's about we must not allow these abortions because it's immoral? No, it's about we've got to keep these 60% of the aborted fetuses that every year are white. If we could keep, and there is a book. A man has written a book that says that very thing. Ben Wattenberg. Have you read his book, The Birth of Truth?
Please tell me his name again, please.
Ben Wattenberg. He's a brilliant man, absolutely brilliant. I think he's still alive. Read his book, The Birth Dearth, and you'll get a sudden insight into what the Right to Life movement is all about. It is not about morality. It is about perpetuating the majority status of white people in the United States of America. 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. He says in his book, if we could just keep those white fetuses alive, that would solve our birth dearth. He says too few white babies are being born in this country today. And he wrote this book about 30 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Ben Wattenberg?
If it doesn't frighten you, I don't know what will. He advised presidents, particularly Reagan and Nixon and Ford. Not Ford. He didn't take any advice. The Bushes. You really ought to read the book.
It's on my reading list.
What a tipping point for the United States. Let's start with some of the maths, though. From what I understand, immigration is actually tapering off, but the trend we're talking about today is set to continue.
Yes, that's correct. We've had a pretty good level of immigration for the last 2.5 decades, but in the last 3 or 4 years it's tapered. But that doesn't matter as far as the births to Hispanics and Asians and people from other parts of the world are concerned, because we've already now amassed a pool of native-born Hispanics and Asians who, because of their fertility and the fact that they're a younger part of the age structure where people are in their childbearing years, we are now having many more Hispanic births, many more Asian births, and we're having a decline in white births because the white population in the U.S. is just getting older, including the people who are in their childbearing years.
I mean, you're right, the social and political implications of this seem enormous to me. Even America's very identity is being changed.
Yeah, I think being an American and what it means to be an American is going to have a whole different aura to it in the next decade or 2 decades to come. We're really having a divide, I think, emerging in this country between the largely white baby boomer population, who are now largely in their 50s and above, and grew up in a time when there wasn't very much immigration and very much diversity, and this younger group, which is increasingly made up of Hispanics and Asians and so forth. It's the younger group who's more concerned about schools, they're more concerned about home ownership. The older group's worried about retirement, and is there money for that and money for medical care. So I think we're going to have some competition for resources because a lot of the people in this older group don't have personal connections with these new folks coming in, and it's going to perhaps mean some collisions along the way.
And is education one of the key things here? Because right now there is a big disparity between the amount of whites who get university degrees, for instance, and non-whites.
That's true. I mean, we have a shrinking pool of whites who are in their school-age years, and increasingly people who are coming, especially from Latin America, who come to this country whose parents may not be that well educated and are very dependent on our school system to provide them a pathway to college and to the middle class and to skills. I think that's our challenge here in the U.S. because at this point, the Hispanic population has a much lower rate of college graduation than the white population, and we need to change that generationally if we're going to help build up our labor force with these new workers.
And just briefly, is there any concern that these new figures could fuel any anti-immigration sentiment or any non-white sentiment in the country?
Well, we've had a little bit of anti-immigration sentiment on and off over the last couple of decades. Older people sometimes have trouble getting used to new things and changes, especially in the middle part of the country where there hadn't been a lot of immigration in the past, and now there's more dispersion into that area. I think eventually people are going to come to the conclusion that we need these young people, especially in a country that without them, we would be aging, we would be losing our children, we would be showing declines in our labor force, as is evidenced in many other countries. And I think, it's true, we're having a little bit of backlash against this, but my feeling is in the long run, the welcoming idea of America and our history here in this country of new people will prevail.
White power, 1, 2, 3, 4! First, MHD. This is 13 Eyewitness News at 4.
Next on the news at 4, a jury returns a verdict for Andrew Blomberg, the former Houston police officer accused in the beating of a teenage burglary suspect.
The verdict is, we the jury find the defendant, A. Blomberg, not guilty. Signed by the foreman of the jury.
It is a verdict that has some in the community screaming racism.
What happened in that courtroom just now is a damn shame. That's an abomination of justice.
There is no justice.
This is 13 Eyewitness News at 4.
And next on the news at 4, a jury returns a verdict for Andrew Blomberg, the former Houston police officer accused in the beating of a teenage burglary suspect.
The verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, A. Bloomberg, not guilty. Signed by the foreman of the jury.
It is a verdict that has some in the community screaming racism.
What happened in that courtroom just now is a damn shame. That's an abomination of justice.
There is no justice. We have live team coverage on a verdict that definitely has people in Houston taking sides.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Eric Barajas.
And I'm Gina Gaston, in for Ilona Carson. It did not take the 6 jurors long to return that not guilty verdict.
Yeah, many people do not agree with the verdict, including the police chief and the mayor, and there's no shortage in the anger many are feeling over the acquittal.
We're going to get to the reaction in just a minute, but we want to begin with Eyewitness News reporter Damon Fernandez, who talked to the former officer shortly after he was cleared of the charges. Damon?
Well, Gina, you know, it's been a very emotional day in and around this courthouse. Andrew Blomberg gave a simple head nod and mumbled a quick thank you to the jury for that not guilty verdict.
The verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, A. Bloomberg, not guilty. Signed by the foreman of the jury.
And with that message, former HPD officer Andrew Blomberg appeared teary-eyed in this tense courtroom, now off the hook for his alleged actions in the videotape beating of Chad Holly.
It's hard your life's in the jury's hands.
It took the jury a total of about 7 hours to find Blomberg not guilty of official oppression. We watched as he gave his wife an emotional hug after the jury's not guilty verdict.
They worked hard. They looked at all of the evidence, and this is the right thing.
Blomberg continued embracing his parents, who've sat behind him through the 9 days of this trial. The jury had to determine whether Blomberg intentionally mistreated Holly during a burglary arrest back in March 2010. Prosecutors who didn't want to go on camera today tried convincing the jury Blomberg unlawfully stomped on the teen's upper body 2 times. They also shook Blomberg's hand after that verdict.
I just want to thank everybody that's supported me throughout this. It's been a long ordeal. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my entire life, and I'm just glad this part's finally over.
Blomberg is the first of 4 indicted officers to stand trial in the Chad Holly beating case. He was facing up to a year in jail or a $4,000 fine. When Blomberg was asked if he had any regrets over what happened, his answer?
No, I don't.
For safety reasons, both Blomberg and the jury had to be escorted out of this courthouse by police. Now, Blomberg's also asked, we'll have more from him coming up at 6, but I will tell you this, the jury's also asked the judge, to seal the list of their names for their own protection. At the courthouse, Damon Fernandez, 13 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Damon.
Shortly after jurors vindicated former HPD officer Andrew Blomberg in the videotape beating of teen burglar Chad Holly, Houston Mayor Anise Parker made this candid statement.
I certainly don't agree with the verdict, and I support the chief of police in his actions in relation to these officers. They will never again be Houston police officers, whatever the verdict is in the criminal trial.
While the mayor and police chief opposed the actions of the officers involved, in a written statement, Chief McClellan thanked the jury, saying, quote, I understand that some will disagree with the verdict. Although no system is perfect, our system of jurisprudence provides appropriate safeguards to protect our freedoms. Ray Hunt, president of the Houston Police Officers Union, agrees.
I think that everyone should respect what the jury has done. I watched this jury listen intently the entire time this trial went on. They were very attentive the entire time.
Hunt's decision to publicly support Blomberg at the trial only added to the mounting tension between police and outraged community activists in the days leading up to today's not guilty verdict. Hunt is calling for calmer minds to prevail. So is Mayor Parker.
We have the right in this country to protest decisions that with which we disagree, but we will do it in a civil, safe manner. And I trust that Houstonians will do just that.
McClellan echoed that in his statement, saying, quote, I also appreciate the citizens of Houston and trust that they will continue to express themselves in a manner that is respectful of the rights and privileges we all share. It is important to remember that the officer that was the subject of this trial is no longer a Houston police officer, and that a separate and distinct administrative process has confirmed his termination from the Houston Police Department. he will never again be a Houston police officer. Hunt says if there are public protests and if for some reason they become violent or get out of control, he will ask the judge for a change of venue for the 3 other officers who are still slated to go to trial. We're live near downtown. Andy Sirota, 13 Eyewitness News.
Okay, as Andy just noted, 3 other former officers await their own trials in connection with the alleged beating. Philip Bryan, Rod Hassan, and Drew Reiser are each charged with official oppression, the same charge as Blomberg. Hassan and Brown are also charged with violation of the civil rights of a prisoner. All charges are misdemeanors that carry a maximum punishment of a year in jail. Well, DA Pat Leica says her office is prepared to go to trial on the remaining cases and has requested the court to set speedy trials.
And you might recall that Chad Hawley was eventually convicted of burglary and recently completed his probation for that conviction.
Okay, as soon as the verdict was announced, our Facebook page was flooded with responses.
Yes, and an overwhelming number of those were critical of this verdict. Jim was quick to react, saying, "This is wrong any way you look at it. I can't imagine what the jury was thinking." Many felt race played a big part in the case, like Ben, who wrote, "All-white jury, white cop on trial for beating a black teenager. No surprise there."
Well, Shauna actually supported the verdict, saying people seem to forget he, meaning Chad Hawley, was caught in a criminal act and was resisting police. The jury had obviously seen evidence not released to the public. And Paul says he still expects justice to come. There are still 3 other officers to be tried, and the video evidence is stronger against them. The case against Blomberg was the weakest because he was the least involved of the 4 other officers. Okay, thanks for writing in. And remember, you can always give us your thoughts at abc13.com/feedback. And coming up in our next half hour, our legal expert talks about the jury makeup in this case and the future of the other officers charged with this verdict and what it could mean for them as well. And as always, we have complete coverage on our website at abc13.com.
A news conference we told you about earlier in this newscast is wrapping up now at the NAACP headquarters in southeast Houston. Chad Hawley was expected to speak there, but he was a no-show. Eyewitness News reporter Deborah Wrigley is there live with an update. Deborah?
Dave, the news conference that's underway behind us, it is being held here at the NAACP. The head of the Houston NAACP called today's verdict, quote, miscarriage of justice and an outrage. You have several ministers who've also been decrying that verdict that was given today. The one person not here, the one person at the center of all this, Chad Hawley, the announcement he would not be attending came just a few minutes ago.
I have spoken with Chad's mother. I have spoken with Chad. In fact, at first, Chad thought it was a joke. He didn't think it was really a not guilty verdict. He was shocked, he was hurt, and he has absolutely lost hope in the system.
And so the news conference continues behind us. A lot of plans, a lot of promises not to let this verdict just pass into the history books without any comment. There is a protest being organized for tomorrow. There are a lot of other plans being talked about, including some preaching from the pulpit about that. From Southeast Houston, Deborah Wrigley, 13 Eyewitness News.
Well, much of the outcry over yesterday's verdict is directly related to the all-white 6-person jury which acquitted Blomberg. Eyewitness News reporter Deborah Wrigley continues our live team coverage with a closer look at the jury pool and the selection process. Her story all new at 6. Deborah?
Dave, first, from a tactical standpoint, the state had an uphill battle. The DA wanted all 4 ex-officers to be tried together, but their defense attorneys had their cases separated, and the toughest one to prosecute was up first, that of Andrew Blomberg, and then the questions about the jury. The jurors' names have been sealed by the court at their request. What we do know,
it's an all-white jury. Not one black person was on the jury. All-white jury. Guilty.
That is true. Jury selection in the trial of Andrew Blomberg took a week. Potential jurors questioned individually. A pool of more than 60 emerged that was winnowed down to 19 people, from which defense and prosecution could choose. Each side was allowed to strike 5 jurors, which left a total of 10. 6 plus an alternate emerged, all of them white. The defense struck 2 potential black jurors for cause. DA Pat Lykos today says there was nothing the state could have done to change that.
Absolutely not. The black prospective jurors were struck by the defense. So there's nothing we could have done to prevent what actually occurred with respect to jury selection.
The prosecution didn't object to the strikes, and jury selection juror background information is given to both sides. The black jury candidates dismissed, and Blomberg's attorney says it wasn't because of race. One worked for the DA's office, the other.
One of them said that he'd been arrested without justification by the Houston Police Department over 30 times. He said that wouldn't make any difference, but frankly, I thought it probably would.
That would mean they were struck for cause. Adam Gershowitz is a professor of criminal law at the University of Houston and says while it may not appear fair,
but there's nothing illegal, nothing impermissible about having an all-white jury in this type of case. We can't mandate, the law doesn't allow a mandate, that a certain number of members of individual groups be on a particular jury. They just can't do that.
As far as that jury is concerned, Dick DeGuerin, Blomberg's attorney, said that initially the panel was split. 2 for acquittal, 2 for a conviction, and 2 undecided. Eventually, all 6 came together, the verdict unanimous. The reason is that they felt the state could not prove that Blomberg knew what he was doing was unreasonable. 1 case down, 3 more to go. Outside the Harris County Courthouse, Deborah Wrigley, 13 Eyewitness News.
Former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour's parting pardons created quite a public reaction. Daniel Cherry with Mississippi Public Broadcasting describes it on PBS NewsHour.
Governor Barbour had first pardoned 5 inmates, and that was drawing enough attention. And then came this additional 200 plus, and it really did just create a serious public outcry around here.
Many who were granted clemency worked as trustees at the governor's mansion during their prison sentences. The former governor defends his decision in this statement posted on his website. Historically, the trustees sent to work at the mansion have been murderers convicted of crimes of passion, as experts say they are the least likely to commit another crime and are the most likely to serve well. All but one of the mansion trustees this time were convicted of murder. In a press conference, Barbour reaffirmed his decision. Here's CNN.
I have no question in my mind that these 5 guys are not a threat to society. But, you know, people like you can say, what if, till the moon goes down.
Barbour says he pardoned one murderer, Anthony McRae, because he was a, quote, diligent and dedicated workman. McRae was convicted of killing his wife, Jennifer Bonds McRae. Her sister, Joanne Martin, spoke to CBS News.
I don't doubt that he didn't do a good job, but that doesn't make it right that he should be pardoned for murder.
A writer for Time reports Barbour claims the clemencies would save the state millions in medical bills because many of the inmates he pardoned were suffering from chronic diseases such as diabetes. Barbour also says he's at peace with the pardons, citing the faith he shares with the majority of Mississippians, saying, quote, Christianity teaches us forgiveness and second chances. The people of Mississippi, not as forgiving, says one New York Times reporter who writes, quote, only a hardy few are coming to the defense of Mr. Barbour, who is to Republican politics what fellow Mississippian Brett Favre was to football, down to the questionable endgame. For Newsy, I'm Nathan Byrne, multiple sources, the real story.
And everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn.
An investigation underway after a disturbing and inappropriate announcement was made at a Walmart in New Jersey. It happened at a store on Route 42 in Washington Township Sunday night. Company management and police are reviewing security tapes after a male voice announced, quote, attention Walmart shoppers, all black people leave the store now, close quote. Management has apologized. The incident is being investigated as a possible bias crime.
You probably want to know the reason why I shot this place up. This place is a racist place.
Yep, I understand that.
They treat me bad over here. and treat all other black employees bad over here, too.
Don't use racism as an excuse. It's not an excuse.
The Hartford Distributors tragedy was the deadliest workplace shooting in state history.
Now a memorial fund in honor of the gunman, Omar Thornton, has the victims' family members disgusted.
Thornton's mother set up the fund. Fox Connecticut's George Colley has reaction now from both sides. George.
8 men went to work at Hartford Distributors the morning of August 3rd, 2010, and never made it home. A 9th man also died that day, the shooter, Omar Thornton, who took his own life. His mother says it was racism that led to the killings, despite all investigations so far saying otherwise. Now she wants to use her son's death as a platform, and victims' families are furious.
Using racism with this group is just wrong to everybody. Everybody.
Christopher Roos was supposed to be in the meeting as Omar Thornton's union representative the morning Thornton was fired from Hartford Distributors for stealing alcohol. He is beside himself with the news that Thornton's mother would set up a memorial fund in her son's name to, as the website says, raise awareness for institutional racism, despite the fact that the state and Manchester police, OSHA, and the Teamsters all conducted investigations that show no evidence of the sort.
Bring families, 8 families, through this mud again is unacceptable.
Ruse says the fund is a slap in the face to the families of the 8 victims and the survivors who are all still grieving.
Shaking their head in disbelief. You know, they just can't believe someone's actually saying that this is still racism after everything we've been through with this.
For Lily Holiday, Thornton's mother, she says she continues to grieve as well. Inside her apartment, signs, pictures, even her son's urn are displayed prominently. She says she does not understand the outrage.
That is my son. That's my baby. And as his mother, I should have the right to do whatever I want to do in my son's honor. And I don't know why would that make them upset.
Holiday says her plans for the site is to raise awareness for institutional racism. However, the funds collected will go to something more specific.
I would like to use the funds to investigate, to do a real investigation, because I don't believe a real investigation has been really done.
Fundraising will include a benefit on the 2-year anniversary of the murders this August, another fact that has families upset.
I just let them do whatever they do and whatever they need to do to grieve, and I need them to do the same for me.
What she's doing is actually hurting the families. It's because it's nothing but farther than the truth.
Connecticut NAACP President Scott Esdale says their Hartford chapter have yet to close their investigation into the cause of the shootings. He says there are a few more witnesses they need to speak with. As for the website, Ms. Holiday says it's been up for a year, but she has yet to file the necessary paperwork with the state for the foundation to accept donations. George Colley reporting, Fox Connecticut.
Dr. Nigger, can you cure me without touching me with nigger hands? Can you save my life without changing my life? Can you dance soft shoe while humming those Negro tunes when my white life codes blue? Can you reach inside yourself beyond the shit we put in you, past painful moments we put in you, past despair and hopelessness we put in you, and find that old black magic in you to save my life without changing all the shit we put in you? Dr. Nigger, can you breathe in me air free a nigger from a nigger not free to breathe in free air? Can you stay on the colored side of the colored line and reach across without touching me with nigger hands to restart my blue heart without changing my cold heart? Can you reach past the life we've taken from you to save my life and not let white life pass me by? Dr. Nigger, save my life without taking my life. Cure me without touching me with nigger hands. Dance soft shoe while humming Negro tunes while you save my life without changing my life when my white life codes blue.
The UCLA health system is internationally renowned for its top caliber patient care and the world's best doctors. But take a closer look, and what you'll see is a university medical community that turns a blind eye to racial inequality, harassment, and discrimination. Dr. Christian Head is the first and only African-American tenured professor in UCLA's Department of Head and Neck Surgery, an esteemed physician with a distinguished career spanning 3 decades. But despite his exemplary reputation, he's been routinely victimized by senior staff officials and subjected to public humiliation within the university's School of Medicine.
I've never had to really think of things before as, you know, the racial aspects, white and black, especially about work, being a surgeon. But I've had no choice other to deal with that.
In 2006, at an annual resident graduation event, which included nearly 200 faculty, staff, and professional peers, Dr. Head was subjected to the first of many overt and racially motivated acts.
This particular year, these residents got ready to do their roast, and they showed a few slides, and I started noticing that they appeared to be concentrating on me. And there was a series of close to 20 slides consecutively describing me as a poor doctor. Then the final slide was a photo of a gorilla on all fours with my head photoshopped onto the gorilla with a smile on my face, and a Caucasian man, completely naked, sodomizing me from behind, and my boss's head photoshopped on the person, smiling. I could feel the pressure in my chest, listening to them laugh. I waited until the laughter subsided, and then I approached the podium, and I pulled my boss aside, Dr. Gerald Burke, and I said to him, "How could you let this happen? How could you do this?" And he just smiled and chuckled. You know, what's the problem?
We do not go to work on a daily basis to be degraded and treated in that manner within a work environment. For Dr. Head to have been subjected to it and then have the university look at it in an indifferent manner is certainly a lack of consideration for he as an employee, for African Americans as a whole.
Upon reporting the demeaning depiction, countless UCLA officials dismissed and ignored Dr. Head's request for appropriate action to be taken. Instead, those responsible remained at UCLA and were in fact rewarded with fellowships.
What hurt the most, though, was the university's lack of action. They basically said the photo didn't exist. And when I went to people in power, they told me, focus on tenure. If you want tenure, you make a big stink about this, they're going to crush you.
Given this ultimatum to keep quiet or sacrifice his future, Dr. Head stepped down from his fight. He got tenure and thought the treatment would be better, but it only got worse. And with each complaint he filed, the retaliation from his supervisors escalated.
I finally reached a point where I realized that even though I achieved tenure during this horrific process, that my boss, Dr. Gerald Burke, was going to destroy me financially.
His pay was cut, teaching opportunities denied, deliberate attempts to sabotage his medical career, actions that continue to this day. Finally, on April 17, 2012, Dr. Christian Head filed a discrimination, harassment, and retaliation suit in the LA Superior Court against UCLA and its Board of Regents.
This case is about a very reputable doctor who has been punished for reporting what he believed was discrimination and retaliation to his boss, to management within his department, to the chancellor's office, and to the regents. And he has been retaliated against beyond measure since then.
Though UCLA claims a commitment to diversity, their own 2011 study shows the Department of Surgery's faculty of 200 men and women includes only 3 African Americans total, less than 2%. A recent campus climate survey reveals that African American students view the university as not at all responsive to their issues of diversity.
Looking at the university as a whole, there seems to be an under-representation of African Americans on the campus itself. There's something missing when UCLA has not done its part in raising the number of African American students in that total population, both as students and as employees.
You know, I had this dream when I was in medical school of training at the best institution I felt in the country, and becoming one of the top surgeons in an academic environment, and teaching others to kind of be like me. There's a lot of African Americans behind me who deserve an opportunity, who are being denied access. And so that's why I spoke up.
Join the fight to stop UCLA and the UCLA Medical Center from its practice of racial discrimination. Pass this story on until Dr. Christian Head is treated with the dignity he deserves.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade Justice in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the program. Today's date, Saturday, May 19th, 2012, so I have been told. We will get right to the phone lines. The number to dial, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. If you dial that line, it is *6. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it's *8. Number again, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. We will get right to the phone lines. I'll make sure to let folks know we will be back tomorrow. Next broadcast, that would be Sunday, May 20th. Sunday, May 20th. Joris DeBreeze, white male, racist suspect, joining us live from the area of the world known as New Zealand. He is allegedly an anti-racist. He's done a lot of reports, speaking about racism in New Zealand, how the non-white people there have been mistreated, and white people there need to do a better job by them in all areas of people activity. Again, will be, I think, a solid opportunity to compare and contrast the way that white people talk about racism, white supremacy in different areas of the world. We just heard from a white dude in Australia a couple days ago, and Kevin and Ed when we were on Mr. Ehrenberg's program, Reality Unknown. So it'll be interesting just to compare and contrast racists who are on different plantations. But that'll be tomorrow evening. The time difference, it'll be in the evening, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening. And again, stern reminder, I had no interest in having Makode Linda, the black male who is reported to have made the cake in Sweden that was in the image of a black female that they were chopping up and eating, all the white people. He should be with us on Monday. We rescheduled just so we could get him on a landline and not really have any time constraints. So it'll be Monday afternoon. The time difference is why it'll be early, but Monday afternoon at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Monday afternoon, that's May 21st, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. He'll be with us. He does have a white parent. He also is a quote-unquote homosexual. So you should already have in mind what to expect. More than anything, he is a victim of racism. But the two tidbits of information that is reported online will verify that that's accurate. But you know, victim of racism, you should keep that in mind. But several listeners said that they wanted to hear from him on the program to get more background information about why he would make such a cake. This Monday, make sure you all tune in, have some questions ready. He'll be joining us live from Sweden. And also Monday afternoon, Pam, she'll be back with us. We will be making another program to address anti-blackness. Y'all can kind of think of some ways that your own anti-blackness seeps in with the way that you function, the way that you conduct yourself with other black people, maybe even the way that you think about and treat yourself. Tune in this Monday. The program time, again, will be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Pam, co-author of the Interracial Con Game, among many other great texts, will be visiting with us again this Monday evening. 2 programs on Monday. Okie doke. We'll hit the phone lines. I guess the only quick things I would add about the news clips, as I said, I want to try to make this one was a little longer than normal, but there were so many things, again, reported this week that I wanted to kind of get out there so that folks would kind of be aware of what's going on in different areas across the planet. It could have been longer. I left out other clips. It could have been much longer. And again, everything that you heard, these are things that happened within the last 7 days. I think the only two exceptions, the clip about the announcement at Walmart, that did not happen in the last 7 days, but the update did happen. That black male is suing Walmart for $1 million. You can check this out. It's on the internet. Walmart is being sued for $1 million by a man who claims he was traumatized by a racist comment made over an intercom at a southern New Jersey store 2 years ago. Donnell Batty of Winslow accuses Walmart of being negligent in failing to control access to the store's intercom, which was used to broadcast an announcement ordering all black people to leave the Washington Township store. A 16-year-old boy was arrested days later and charged with harassment and biased white supremacist intimidation. Batty claims he has needed medical care due to the March 2010 comment. He says it caused him severe and disabling emotional and psychological harm. That was reported just a couple days ago, May 15th, 2012. That was one update. The other report that was not from this week was the awkward black girl sound clip. That was not that long ago, just in the last 30 days. The reason that I played that is because when that was initially reported, when they initially did that video clip, came from CNN, it was connected to her being terrorized because she won this award. They apparently have Shorty Awards for best web shows, and she very popular program. Lots of people. I think she has 1 million views on YouTube. People love this broadcast. She has her own webpage. You can check it out, awkwardblackgirl.com. I watched some of the videos before. I was going to have her, I think last year was when I became aware of her program. I was going to email to ask her to be a guest on the program, but of course, if you are astute at listening and you heard the little snippet that led into her clip with Oreo Experience, I watched one too many episodes. I saw one and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I see what she's trying to do. And the next video that I watched, of course, she's going out on a quote-unquote date with a white guy, and that kind of soured my interest in having her as a guest on the program. But nonetheless, she is a victim. When I saw this, and this was in the last 30 days, when I first saw this, she was being terrorized. She won a very successful program. She won all these awards, and white people just, chimped out online and started calling her nigger and all this and talking about how she didn't deserve anything and the niggers are always taking our awards and blah, blah. What we talked about yesterday, white people being envious, they wigged out. There are tons of reports online. You can see it on CNN. One of them, awkward black girl creator, Issa Rae, responds to racism. This happened around the same times that Hunger Games was in the news a lot for people being upset about the black characters. She did respond. You can check that out online. XOJANE.com. I guess that's XOJANE.com, where she has a post. It's titled "People on the Internet Can Be Hella Racist," where she's responding, and in her view, where she just says that she thinks a lot of these white people are just being very cowardly and taking advantage of the fact that they can be anonymous and sit behind their computer and be racist thugs and terrorize black people online. But yeah, those are the only two things that were not within the last 7 days. Pretty much everything else was last 7 days. Very recent stuff going down on the plantation. I'll make one quick connection. The segment that you heard, former governor in Mississippi, Haley Barbour, he pardoned all these people, many of them murderers, some of them drunk drivers who ran over people with their vehicle and what have you. Just, keep in mind, I think many folks have said that black people, victims, we tend not to have a good memory. White people have traumatized us so, and I think they've done research. If you are under a great deal of stress, you don't remember things quite as well. former governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour, is the same person that everyone was protesting and clamoring to get him to release the Scott sisters, who did not kill anybody, but had that massive jail sentence, if you recall, right? Same person. I don't think they killed anybody, but they had all that jail time. People had to do all that fussing and marching and demanding to try to get them out of greater confinement. He was still governor at the time, and they were never pardoned. I checked. They did get released, but they did not get pardoned. And he even commented, you can check it online, where he commented after they were released and said, basically, don't hold your breath, and thinking that I'm going to pardon those two anytime soon. Did get released, but did not get pardoned. There's a difference. Also, suspected racist Haley Barbour, this same person, man. So I could have went back. If you want to do more digging about Haley Barbour, his name has come up quite a bit on the program. Senator David Lee Jordan, he's been a guest on the program twice, and I think we've had to talk about Haley Barbour more than once. I think he was governor when James Craig Anderson was ran over by those racists in Mississippi last summer. I think he was still governor at the time. We talked about that. He was governor at the time that the body of Frederick Jermaine Carter, the black male found hanging in the tree in December of 2010, Barbour was governor at that time, and he had nothing to say about that incident at all. Nothing. Senator Jordan talked about that. And same guy, when he was governor, end of 2010, he came out and this was quoted in the Maine newspaper in Mississippi. He was quoted as saying that he thought that the Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission, this was a racist organization of white people, that he thought that they were great citizens and that they were doing quality work for the state of Mississippi, and he didn't have anything bad to say about them. And even white people were looking like, what are you talking about? These are racist terrorist organizations. What are you saying? Same guy who has this whole legacy, in my view, of just clearly terroristic white supremacist speech and conduct. Now he's pardoning all of these murderers. That was why I tossed that one in. Other one that I'll comment on before I hit the phone lines. The longer segment, it was 3 different clips about the former white enforcement officer in Houston, Texas, that he was acquitted of beating this black male. You can see the video of the beating online if you want to check it out. They have video of, it's like 3 or 4 officers just stomping this black male down. You all heard it, so I mean we can hear your commentary. I'll just throw in, I hope people remember from the compensatory call-in from last weekend. This is just in the last 2 weeks. This was in Houston, right? We had a program last week where I began with a news clip. It was with the Galena Park Police Department, which is also in Houston. Galena is Galena, Galena Park Police Department. And it was a photograph of a white person with a water hose shooting water on a black child. And the caption read, "Go be a nigger someplace else." This is all in Houston. Police Department in Houston, and all this came out just in the last 2 weeks. That was one. The second, if you watch the videos, I don't know if it really comes across in the audio, but if you watch the video, especially the second segment where they had a white female reporter and she was out, apparently there was some sort of protest where people were upset about this white guy getting acquitted, and this white woman is out and she said, yeah, there's talk of a lot of plans, and I guess there's going to be a march, and just, a lot of time. I mean, it was basically like, yeah, the niggas are doing a lot of yelling, and you could see them in the background, like the way they still, like, white people are clowning and so terroristic. I mean, tacky, trifling, and terroristic at all times. They got the black people in the background giving their talks and what have you. One of them was Quanell X. He was supposed to be a guest on the program last year, but it didn't materialize. But they're up talking, this is an outrage, this is an abomination. They're all mad, and she's just like, yeah, just more niggas doing a lot of loud talk. I mean, you can just see it, the expression in her face, the words that she used, like, yeah, they're talking a lot of stuff about what they're going to do, and Yeah, they're getting up on the pulpit and they'll preach a little bit. I'm sure all this will be over in the next 24 hours or so, and we can get on with our lives. It's just a lot of niggas talking, basically. Back to you all at the studio. Just, woo! If you watch the video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe it came through in the audio. Yeah, let's see. Is anything before I hit any other news clips, anything else I want to get in? I could say a lot about the Trayvon Martin situation. I could have played more the photographs of, now they have George Zimmerman with photos of the cuts on his head, and I thought it was very strategic the way they had that, and they made sure to end one of the articles that I read with the fact that Martin, the toxicology report, he had THC in his system from marijuana, really playing that up. Martin's a criminal. Zimmerman was beaten. See there, look at all the cuts on his head. Oh my gosh, isn't this terrible? And I just thought, number one, white people are so skillful at when they allow information to be released, framing the context of how the information will be shaped, how people will receive that information. They are masterful. They are conducting, orchestrating a totally trifling terroristic circus with the whole Trayvon Martin situation. And, I would just expect the absolute worst in the case for him to walk, and maybe for them to even find something to charge the murdered Trayvon Martin by the time everything is said and done. My 2 cents. I will hit the phone lines. The person that called in from Brooklyn. If you're on TalkShoe, it's *8 if you have a question. Person that called in, I suspect this is from Brooklyn. Your line is open. People, if you're on the free HD line, it's *6. Person in Brooklyn, did you have questions, comments?
I've got a little background noise. Oh, it's gone. Greetings, Gus. Good to hear from you. You were just asking about that. It came through really clear the way, the tone of the voice of the woman that was talking about you could hear the black people in the background screaming and carrying on, and she's like, oh yeah, they're going to be like doing some ministering and, have their little nigger juju going on, but, they're going to be done pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing grouping of things. I've been pretty busy here, so hopefully I'll have some coins pretty soon to give to you for your valiant effort. But there was something that I had seen on ABC News recently. Will Smith on the catwalk, right? Or not a catwalk, he's like on the red carpet or whatever. Some white dude, a racist suspect, wearing a white suit, comes up to him, asks for a hug. All right, sure, whatever, here's a hug. Guy moves in for a kiss on the mouth for an Adrian Brody moment. Will Smith pushes him back. It's like, what is wrong with you? Backhand slaps the dude. The crowd boos him, and then he's like, he's lucky he didn't get sucker punched. I was like, I played it like 10 times over. I was like, what the heck? But nah, they're going full force. It was pretty amazing. Did you see that one?
I did. Mr. Fine mailed it to me. I checked it out earlier today. The interesting thing, the comments on that one, I think Vicus and D-Train as well as Pumpkin have consistently stated the comments. White people generally are pretty honest because they can be anonymous, no penalties. The comment section, the site that I saw the video clip, I scrolled down and looked at some of the comments, and quite a few white people were upset with Will Smith. One of the comments I read, they said, hey, I saw 6 degrees of separation, cowbell ring. I saw 6 degrees of separation. I thought Will Smith was cool with gay marriage. This makes me second guess. I don't like him so much anymore. There was another comment that said, I thought Will Smith was down with gay marriage. Why would he have a problem with a male wanting a kiss? Which, I mean, that right there, let's even just say for the sake of argument for a moment that I did think, okay, I'm down with gay marriage. I am not, but let's just say for the sake of argument I am. That means that I got to be cool with another male kissing me? what the hell? Anyway, the next comment was Will Smith. Oh man, I'm trying to, because I don't have it in front of me. The next one was, they were I guess someplace in Europe where this took place, and they were like, that's custom, they do the kiss on both cheeks, and he should have known that. He's a big star. I can't believe this is so disrespectful, and he might even be charged with assault. Quite a few comments where it seemed like white people were not pleased with Will Smith at all. So that might be interesting to follow.
Yeah, the report with the little kid who I guess innocently so-called the little racist white supremacist who came in with blackface as a homage to MLK. Kind of reminded me just the way the white people were talking about, like, oh well, who the person that complained, she was wrong to have complained about this kid putting on that blackface to play Martin Luther King. It was kind of the same, like I was reading on ABC News, the thing with Will Smith, and the people, I mean, it was like the little extra stories underneath, like online you have the related stories or like little commentary underneath the story, and they were saying that, like, some people thought that he had, like, yeah, it was totally against, it was like as if he hadn't almost just gotten sexually assaulted, which is the way I see it, like a sexual assault. A man coming up to you trying to kiss you on the mouth, like, excuse me? Yeah, so.
Absolutely. I'll check the person that dialed in on the other line as well to see if they have feedback. But yeah, I saw some of I'm remembering them now, some of the other comments that I saw. It was like, he wouldn't have done that if it had been a female. I can't believe that. And it was totally, they were linking it to, he's some sort of homophobe. He's not supportive of quote unquote gay marriage. He must be quote unquote homophobic. I'm sure he wouldn't have smacked a female if a female had come up and tried to kiss him.
You know what I'm thinking too now? I heard that him and Jada were like quote unquote swingers, and like, so it's just like, and then in 6 Degrees, I read that back in the day, like, it's like they want to use everything against you, to say, well, you have to go for everything since you went for something at some point, like, using everything against you.
Mm-hmm. Build things up to tear them down. We were just talking about that yesterday. The person in 8286, your line is open as well, 8286.
Hi. I also wanted to comment on the incident with Will Smith. Basically, the way I saw it was I've been reading over several reports, and like the other caller was saying, they're just trying to drum things up. They tried to even emphasize the fact that he didn't know what a Euro kiss was, and I'm sorry. If you look at the video, I mean, he was going in like field tackle on him, like just sexually assaulting him. And now they're trying to make it seem as if, when you use the word homophobic, you're instilling that that person is fearful of. And it's just a misuse of words and terms, yet again, that white people do. Also, I wanted to let listeners know, I know everybody has heard about Obama and his decision to, uphold same-sex marriage. And what I am seeing happen, whether it's on TV or in most of the churches, our black churches, is that we are getting we're getting misguided on the religious aspect of it and not the legal ramifications of this. And the LGBT community, the white in particular, they know exactly what they're doing. They are using the religious aspect as a Trojan horse to infiltrate and divide the black church. And I have been warning people of this for years. And the reason why I say that is back in '93 when they had the march on Washington, the gay and lesbian community, majority white elite or middle class, upper class whites, they were the reason why there's this misconception about gay rights is civil rights is because the word that they are using is civil and not special rights. The U.S. Constitution, back in the 60s when the Civil Rights Act was passed, had already identified all minority groups, all, whether you're Native American, all other, minority groups, so to speak. So after that was passed, in Cincinnati, if you look at the case in Cincinnati, Ohio, the gay and lesbian community were trying to pass the same ordinance there. So they got together and started Prop 3 or whatever the thing was there. And basically what the gay community is now trying to do, the word game that they're playing is basically they're trying to take our minority status, because the government has qualifications for what qualifies to be a minority. Because this has nothing to do with religion, and that's where we're losing the argument at. And they're doing it purposely because they're trying to play off of our guilt. It needs to be stressed that we need to look at the legal aspect, because basically you're having a group of people with sexual behavioral issues trying to take your minority status, and they're trying to compare their suffering with our people's history, and there's just simply no comparison. Our people are and still are oppressed. They just had to suppress their sexuality, and quite frankly, that's not my fucking problem. That's all I just wanted to say.
G-rated. We can watch the language. I would appreciate it. Good point, though. Very good point. I spoke with Mr. Fuller about that this past week, about the whole President Obama and his stance on quote-unquote gay marriage. And he was saying, I think the same thing that you touched on about the dissension and just getting a lot of arguments going. And he said he thought that they were going to use this to just create a lot of confusion in the quote-unquote black church. As I said, that sound clip at the beginning, it could have been a lot longer, because CNN on Sunday, they had a huge article, several of them, in fact, on the whole quote-unquote gay marriage thing. And one of them, it had a big photo of Al Sharpton at the top. And it was like, black people are such hypocrites. The black church is being really hypocritical. They're using all these religious texts and Christianity to defend their opposition to quote-unquote gay marriage. But this is the same Christian Bible that was used to justify slavery. And how hypocritical can you be? And of course, like I said, huge photograph of Al Sharpton at the top. And they had a lot of posts going back and forth around this, and just to create a lot of confusion. I'd say white people, they're very good at using the 8th area of people activity, sex, to get black people, non-white people totally off track, fussing, arguing, in conflict, and not focused on racism, white supremacy. That definitely could have been included in the clip. Your lines are still open. Shadow 11, your line is open as well. I didn't know if you had something on this subject. Shadow 11, did you?
Hello, Gus. Sorry about that. I had my phone on mute.
Okay. We can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I also heard about a lot of things that they were saying about the church, and it seems strange to me that they act as if the black church is the only church that's against homosexuality, as if most Latinos or and many Asians churches are not against this, but we're the only ones that they're talking about. I thought that was not strange, but I understand why they're doing it. It's the anti-blackness, I think. I had heard on your one of your earlier programs that you wanted me to talk about the success I had with a relative, my cousin, getting out of a tragic arrangement. And I'll just go into the story of what happened. I told you a little bit about it. Like I said, I would want her to call in, but she's out of the country right now, so maybe I'll have her call in at another time. Like I said, this girl's my cousin. There's two of them, and I've known them since they were children. And we've always talked, and as they've grown up, this girl has been exposed to things like the ISIS papers and Malcolm X. The younger one is quite, she seems okay. She seems to understand that there's a system of white supremacy, and she's not really anything. But the older one that just got out of the relationship, she was the type that would hear the stuff, seem like she understood it, but it wouldn't change her behavior. This was actually the second white person that she dated. The only thing I have found successful in breaking relatives from tragic arrangements is, which is good as what we do on the show, is analyzing the patterns that white people have, the things they say, and telling them to watch out for them. I don't normally tell them that, oh, all white people are racist, because they're just not going to believe that, and that's just going to push them away. So I tell them, hey, some white people are racist, and this is what you should look out for. And once you do that, and it happens, that gives you a lot of carte blanche, for lack of a better word. They tend to respect what you say a lot more. And it's real easy because they all do the same things. They all say the same things. Anybody have any input on that?
Are you saying, like, with your cousin, that Dr. Campbell, I think he would say that when you understand something, there's a difference. That's the way he says it. There's a difference between knowing and understanding. And he would say when you understand something, it is reflected in your behavior. For the cousin that did not understand, she had the information, but it was not applied with regards to her behavior. You're saying that when you gave her specific racist behavior patterns to pay attention to, these are things you should be on the lookout for. And then when that happened, she was a lot more receptive to hearing more information about white supremacy, racism?
Absolutely. The funny thing is that that story about the awkward black girl that you talked about, she actually, she actually talked to me about that, about how, she liked that show a lot, and she saw how a lot of white people had, really terrorized that woman, and she even put, a tragic arrangement in her video, and they still hated on it. So yeah, we talked about that, and I just told her that, hey, I said, and one of the things I told her is, I said, look, when you're with a racist, I said, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to deny that there's any racism at all. They're going to say there's no racism. And then right after they say that, they're going to start giving you reasons why black people are justified in being treated badly. So they'll say things like, well, you guys call each other nigger, or Africans sold their own people into slavery, which is an argument he actually had with her and her younger sister. And then I said, and the third thing I've seen is that they will then say that if anytime you point out something that's racist, they will accuse you of being the racist. And I told her, I said, you just look out for these three things. And I said, the same three things will come from the same person. They'll tell you that there's no racism. They'll tell you that your mistreatment is justified, and then they'll call you a racist. I said, if those three things come out in one mouth, you know what's up. And they all do that, I think. I'm sure all of you all have experienced that kind of stuff or heard of it.
How long did it take from the time when she first started to observe some of the warnings that you gave her about things that, you can kind of expect to happen? How long did it take from when she first started to observe those things to when she said, okay, I'm making a decision to change my behavior and dissolve this tragic arrangement?
That's the bad thing. It took quite a while. It took It took months, and it was actually me telling her these things, and I've seen this pattern too with just non-white people in general. You'll tell them these things, and they'll kind of like go into denial. They'll hide it from you. They won't tell you until they're actually ready to break the relationship, and then they start confessing. So I'm not sure exactly when these things started happening, but I'm pretty sure they happened early in the relationship, and she was with him for almost a little over a year. So it does take a while. I mean, when the white chip is in all of us, and when you're having sex with a white person, it's really high. So it's not easy, and I'm not even sure it'll work on everybody, but that's what I've seen can work sometimes with some people. That if you can point out, especially if you can point out behavior before it happens, or behavior that you have no idea, there's no way you could know what's happening, but you're telling the person, hey, this person is going to do this, or they've done this. You know, in all the cases that I have talked to people, she's not the only relative I've had that has done that. And in both cases, I did not hear about the things that were going on until after the relationship was over. Also, the people surrounding the racist, that's another problem that you have. I told her. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you. Very interesting. Wow.
So I just wanted to, like I said, I know probably every caller that's on here knows someone, or in fact, a lot of us are probably related to somebody that's in these arrangements. And, you know, just to give my, 2 cents on what worked for me. If anybody else has had any success or has any stories, I'd like to hear it too, because it's one of the most serious things. And like I said, once it takes place, it's hard. It really becomes difficult to get through to that person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely would like to hear if there are other folks who have some success stories with non-white people. Doesn't have to be quote-unquote family, but just non-white people where you've been able to give them life-saving information related to racism, white supremacy, and you've seen where it did have a constructive impact. That would be great to kind of get more codification, some tips, things that, have worked successfully to deactivate that white chip in victims. That would be great if people have success stories. I think it's in the description. The confusion does not have to be permanent. So if there are folks out there who have positive experiences similar to what Shadow shared with us, definitely dial in. It would be great to hear that and kind of get some more code about how to go about conversing constructively with victims. I know, Pam, your line is open as well. If you had anything on what the caller just shared, or the previous female caller, her thoughts about what's going on with the homosexual agenda. I know you were talking about that as well.
Good evening to everyone. I've told the most profound story I had, and I've told this so many times I don't really want to, go into the full details, but I was a acquaintance of mine who became kind of like a friend, and he was white identified. We had taken a class together. I worked for the same company, and he was, had dated white women throughout high school, white girls throughout high school, and he, we would talk about things, and I never condemned him for it because I didn't think that was going to be constructive, but I used to just send him clips and information about racism, white supremacy, encourage him to read some books. And so he started, I think the turning point for him, just like the previous caller was talking about, is when they start to see it for themselves. It's kind of like you can't really ram this down somebody's throat and demonize them because they might resist you. But if you, try to plant some seeds, try to make them aware of, so that they feel like they're seeing it for themselves, that has a real big impact. And as I told the story before, I was pretty sure he was still dating white women on and off or whatever. And he got to the point where he started to see more and more, and he would watch television and go to movies, and he started complaining about seeing too many white people, and he started complaining about not seeing enough black women and not seeing enough black women that look like black women. And he went from, he was a dark-skinned black male. I'm pretty sure that he was had some issues with color and with race, and he wound up marrying a dark-skinned black woman a little over a year ago, I think. So, and I just recently heard from him. I think about 2 weeks ago he sent me an email, and I asked him how his married life, and he said it was great. So I was really happy to hear that not only had this brother gone from dating white women all throughout high school to not only not dating white women, to marrying a black woman, and not just a black woman, a dark-skinned black woman. And some people might think, why is that important? Because it's significant in that how we've been taught to see each other. And it's significant in a black person who previously was attracted to white women to go all the way to the other spectrum. So in that case, to me, skin color was significant because they're about the same shade. They're both dark. And it said to me that perhaps he had even started to embrace himself and accept himself, that he was able to accept this woman who was his female mirror image. So I also know another person, and I think they might even be listening, who had gone through, like most of us, had gone through, the confusion of thinking that being with white people was something either special or at least something, that was acceptable or desirable. And I think it's important when people see it. All I'm trying to really say is it's important when people see it for themselves, as opposed to having people roll their eyes at them and badmouth them. And I know the temptation is there, but that really doesn't solve the problem, especially if they're in the middle of that relationship. But I will say one last thing. I have never, ever, and I've got relatives that are married to white people. I've been around this, here and there all my life, and I have never, ever met a white person that sooner or later is not going to reveal their racism. I don't care how nice they act. I don't care if they have a black wife or a black husband or supposedly black children. I have never met one that if you don't pay attention, you're not going to see that racism. And at the very least, you're going to see that they believe in white supremacy. And they are not going to want to really look at racism for what it is. They're going to refuse to do that.
I can agree with that.
I agree with you totally, Pam. That you have to let them see it. The comment that really sparked her, or at least maybe the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. This particular white suspected racist, he worked as a waiter, and he got a bad tip from a table of black women. And he came home to her and said, they didn't give me a tip because they didn't get their 40 acres and a mule. And that was where she was just taken aback by that. Like, why would he say that to me? Why would you come home and say that to your black girlfriend? And I just kind of looked at her like, hey, this is what I'm talking about. So yeah, I agree with Pam. Yeah, they all reveal it sooner or later. But,
and especially like you were saying, toward the end of the relationship. Mm-hmm. That's real common. When they finally have had enough playing around. And I will caution sisters. Yes, some people wind up married for a long time, like people in my family. But most of these white men, sisters, I'm telling you, they are playing with you. They are playing with you. If you talk to black women who used to deal with white men, if you talk to black women who were formerly married to white men, if they really, really, really tell you the truth, they will tell you that they were victimized by racism, name called, all kinds of stuff. Most of these white boys out here are playing with you. They even will hook up with a black woman just to have somebody mistreat, and not just black women, non-white women. I have seen them abuse non-white women in public. So what I'm saying is at the root of it, I don't care how you pay it, the vast majority, in my opinion, of white males, their opinion of black women has not changed over the last 400 years. Not really. It's just the mannerisms and the refinement that's involved in how they present themselves publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And I'll add this. I had a brother tell me the other day, he said, these white women sure love brothers. And I told him, no, they love brothers. I said, there's a big difference between them wanting to have sex with you and wanting to treat you with justice and equality. Whole big difference between me having sex with you and me seeing you as an equal human being. And again, it doesn't matter if they marry you, have children with you. The bottom line is their religion is white supremacy, and if you stick around long enough, you're going to see that.
Absolutely.
They don't even protect their children from racism. They don't even tell their children the truth.
It's interesting because I have a situation in my family now with one of my cousins, and she's dating well, I would say he's racist. The incident happened when my great-grandmother had passed, and we were on our way to try and shop, and he made a comment because my other cousin, he was just getting a divorce from his wife, who was white, and I was helping him through that, and he came around with that from me talking with him, and he made a comment because my cousin, she was ranting on the fact how she, dogged my cousin. This white girl had dogged my cousin, and out of his mouth he was like, why do you speak like that? You sound just as racist as white people. And that right there, from then on, I haven't even spoken to the guy. I really don't like even going around the family. Me and my cousin, me and him, we don't even speak to this guy whenever he's around. I told her to her face, I was like, look, this guy, if he's saying this, he is definitely racist, and he just has this total mind control. Like he has conditioned my cousin now to where she doesn't even know what's going on. Total confusion.
Mm-hmm.
But where my cousin, because my cousin's father had gotten killed in a love triangle, and that's what has always been his moral compass. And he told this white girl, if you cheat on me, I'm gone. And she didn't take him serious, and he was serious, and he left. He had 2 kids, tragic arrangement, and 2 kids, but I commend him because he's always emphasized, who they are and, what the society is about. And me and him talk all the time about racism and white supremacy. I haven't gotten him to call in on the line. He works a lot, but she's right now financially terrorizing him, and, so she's trying to get back at him financially.
Okay.
And I guess Pam, you were saying earlier how you can't really try and force it on people. You got to kind of let it meld in, and that's very true, because even if you don't use the word, white supremacy or just say, or, racism, it's they don't see it until it hits them up front, that reality. And, you can talk to them, give them all sorts of information and everything, but until they see it, it's, you got to stand back and pray, so to speak.
Yeah, and, the longer they've been in those relationships, the more damaged they are. And at some point, like my family, you won't be able to do anything. I'll give you an example of the brain trashing. I have a female relative who's been married to a white male for over 4 decades. And she, maybe a couple of years ago, sent me an email full of racist jokes about black people. The kind of jokes that you would think that somebody from the white Aryan nation would send you. Just degrading jokes making fun of poor black people especially. And she said she had kind of, I don't know if she used LOL or whatever, but she, because she might be a little past the age of using that, but she expressed how funny. Isn't this funny? And I thought to myself, I was so offended, but knowing how she is, I just left it alone. I didn't even respond. I wish I had kept a copy of it. I think I deleted it immediately, and I wish I could have kept a copy. And I thought to myself, now that's what happens. Now she's with a white male, educated, college professor that most people would think was not a racist at all. But the reality is, the longer you stay in those relationships, the more white identified you become, the more anti-black you become, the more self-hating you become. It just goes with the territory. And I sat here and I've gone places with her. And I don't visit very often because I just can't take it. But one time we went to a Starbucks, and she was here in town, whatever, and we went to a Starbucks out in the northern suburbs, wealthy suburb. You won't hardly find any black people living in this particular suburb. So we went to the Starbucks, and we were only black people in there, I think. And so we sat down on a sofa. Well, we sat down at the table. 2 tables. There were 2 tables kind of like side by side, not real close together, but close enough. And so the young white male that was sitting at the next table, as soon as we sat down, he gets up and moves to the other side of the thing. Now, see, I was checking it out, and I noticed it. She didn't notice it. I noticed when she wanted to go in the stores, these little boutiques where little items cost, overpriced little things that rich white women can afford to buy. Black women like ourselves cannot. She went in there, and she started telling the owner of the store, and I guess it was the owner and the clerk, talking about how her daughter went to this college and that college. And I'm sitting here listening to her, and I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, these white females don't care anything about your kids? And I just wanted to So I'm standing there, and I'm listening to her, trying to impress them, and they have this look on their face of, and refined white people. White people with money many times are very refined. You have to really, really accept the fact of what they are, to not be fooled. So they didn't stand there, they didn't smile and grin or anything like that, but they were tolerating her, and you could see that they were just tolerating her. So she wound up buying some little thing and walking out because she didn't want to leave the store without showing that she could spend some money. And see, this is what happens when you become brain trashed. Now, this person is over 60 years old, and after all these years, they still frantically searching for white validation. That's the sickness of it, is when you're with a white person, your whole perspective of yourself changes, your whole perspective of what's important. Your white validation goes off the chain, and I don't care if you're male or female. I don't care how you deny it. Your need for white validation goes off the chain because you are in a situation that is totally brain trashing you. So when they've been in the relationships a long time, I don't think you're ever going to help them. You just can't help them.
I can concur.
Unfortunate.
Yep.
Our 2 callers in Japan, they're on the line as well. I won't say the name. Caller in Skype 304 is with us as well. Both of your lines should be open also if you all wanted to chime in.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
No, I just wanted to co-sign what Pam said about white males and black females. Because I can remember a coworker of mine, maybe 2 years ago, when I was more confused, and he was talking about his sexual exploits in Jamaica with black women, and he just kept going on and on about how black women were these kind of like I remember him saying something about one black woman he was with. She was like, yeah, she was a real animal, like man, I never had that before or something. So I just wanted to co-sign what she said. Like, at the end of the day, you just a thrill.
Yeah. They don't respect us. And I think if most black women are really honest, you kind of know where most white males are coming from. Even the ones that put on the front, you pretty much know where most are coming from. So I think it's our need. I think the biggest appeal of the white male is we grew up just like the black males did, and that was seeing the white heroes on TV, seeing the white man being the man, the person in charge, the sex symbol. So it infested our minds too, and I try to remind brothers of that. The same thing that makes a black man want to be with a white woman is the same dynamic that makes some black women check out white men. You know, so, you know, we all been brain trashed to have white people on a pedestal, but unfortunately, I don't think black males see the intercourse as devastating, but I think on black women it has a much more devastating effect because we're women, and our value is in how men treat us. And when you realize you've been sexually assaulted by a white male who totally trashed you or disrespected you or did not even care for you, I think the effect on the woman, on the surface at least, is much more devastating, because we feel differently about being sexually used than black men do, even though black men should also, you know, take care of their bodies too. But I think for women it has a much bigger impact to realize you were just a piece of ASS.
I think you're right too, because...
Very true.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, agree.
And I was just going to say, like, because some of the friends, the black friends that I have here, who I've listen to some interviews with, on the couch with Neely Fuller Jr. and some of the interviews with Pam, you know, they'll agree with everything that you guys say, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, I can't shake them white women. You know, it's like,
yep.
Like I understand it, but then I don't understand it. I understand it from the point of view of, you know, brain trashing and that white ship just, you know, just being so intact to the nth degree. But it's like, I just tell them, like, listen to yourself, man. You sound utterly ridiculous. You're saying you agree with them and saying, like, yeah, these people are truly trifling, terroristic. They mean you all the harm in the universe. But, man, when that white girl come in the club shaking her tail in front of you, you just cannot resist. and they'll look at me like I'm strange because before teaching in Japan, I attended a CELTA course in Budapest, and I lived in Budapest for 2 months to complete that course. And all the while I was there, I was just getting, I never been that sought after by white women in my entire life. And these are white women who, you know, because it's like Budapest, so it's kind of central, close to Eastern Europe. And these are like the kind of model-esque, idealized white women that white men lust after, you know, all the time. And they're just throwing themselves up to me, you know, time and time again. Even some of the members of my classmates and stuff, the white women and the classmates, even after I would tell them I'm already, you know, married and stuff. And they would look at me after I tell them that how easy it was for me to resist those white women. They would look like, man, you crazy. I don't know, white supremacy or not, I'd have been tapping that. Like, man. So I totally agree with Pam. It's like, I think it takes a much greater toll on black women because, like you said, the value is in how you're treated by men, but with black men, it's like, it seems to be no limit. There really seems to be no limit to things that white women can do to us that will, you know, result in us not wanting to sleep with them.
Yeah. I think it's hard, you know, because let's face it, she's got the same body parts. And so men are taught, I think, and you guys can tell me if you agree or disagree, men are taught that, you know, to have, I think, a different concept about what sex means. Sex is pleasure, release. It's part of being a man. You know, I don't think a lot of men, try to attach love and relationships automatically with sex the way women do. So for a lot of men, it can be impersonal, and that's not a problem. But I will tell you this about what I think about white females. I mean, when you look at their situation, here it is. They're in a society where they're in a battle with white men. Now here comes black men along. They don't care what you think. You can't damage their reputation. You're nobody, really. But now I can not only have unlimited sex, doing anything I want, knowing that your opinion of me doesn't matter, I can go back to my real life in my white community, and my reputation is intact. Now, even if I'm seen with you, what I'm saying is, with black men, they can experience the sexual freedom that they want. They can do anything, say anything, be anything, without fear of any kind of recriminations, without fear of any kind of reputation damage, because the black man doesn't have any power to harm white women, not on any sense of the word. So if I was a woman like that, sexually active or promiscuous, the perfect partner for me would be somebody whose opinion didn't matter, who I could sleep with, jump on top of, and this and that, and go on about my business, if that was what I was seeking. So I'm just saying that it may sound like a win-win for black men, but in reality, you're just a piece of meat. So for men who really respect their bodies, for men who understand that sleeping with your enemy is still sleeping with your enemy, the sex would take on different overtones. I suspect that most black men, like black women, do not make the connection between interracial sex and their own oppression. And maybe if they did, they would have a different take on this unlimited flow of white you-know-what. Because the white woman, to me, is the flip side of the homosexual coin. Either way, the black man is neutralized. Whether he has homosexual sex, which is really anti-sex, or he has sex with a white female, he is being dominated by white people and by their perception of him as a man. So,
I agree.
I agree. That's why they come at you so hard. They don't.
For a safe black man at that point, when you're laying down in that bed with that white female, you ain't thinking about overcoming white supremacy. You have been knocked out that box. You are down for the count. You are neutralized. And I think that on the white team, I think white females are playing on that white team when they come after you.
Because you would have thought I was like a lamb, the last piece of lamb meat in a forest full of wolves, because they were just everywhere. I couldn't turn my head without a white woman looking at me like ferociously, lustfully. It's like you really looking at me like that, in broad daylight with all these people. And she wouldn't be the only one. So, yeah, I totally agree. I
tell you one more component. I hope I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I'll tell you one more component while I'm thinking about it, and that is the white woman's at war with the white male. And I've seen white females where it seems like they're almost trying to provoke white male anger. They're trying to rub it in white males' faces. And you'll find a lot of white women who wind up with black men. And this black male told me this. He used to work in an office, and these women used to talk to him. He said a lot of the white women he worked with, for whatever reason, confided in him and said they had been sexually molested by their fathers and by the males in their family. And that I believe to some degree, some white females in their war with white males are using the black male as kind of like a provocation, as a rejection. And she does not care that she's putting you in danger. She knows she's putting you in danger when she flaunts her behavior around white males. She knows that the black man can be harmed or even killed. She doesn't care. She's in a war with a white male. And I suspect a lot of white women that date black men exclusively, if you talk to them, they got negative feelings about white men. Some white father, some white something. They'll talk negatively a lot of times. I'm talking about the ones that date black men exclusively. They probably got some issues with white men.
Obese Joanna said that. She was a guest on the program towards the end of 2010. I think she was in that category of exclusively raping black males, and I think she had some trauma with a white man previously. I did want to say, white men and white women, they fight a lot. Michael Bradley White, that sexual dimorphism, they fight a lot. They are somehow able to put that to the side and make sure they keep in mind we are supposed to be dominating these non-white people. I did want to get that out. I've never seen where white men and white women fight with each other to the point that it causes a disruption to them being able to maintain white domination. Just wanted to get that in. Pumpkin?
Hey, everybody. I wanted to share this. My partner not too long ago was volunteering at the animal shelter out here, and I guess they put him on assignment working in the horse stalls. And one day after he got off of his shift, he was like, he said, I was working with the horses, and there was this white guy working in there with me. He said, you know what he said to me? And I was like, what? The white man told him when they were grooming the horses, he said, you see that horse's vagina? It looks just like a black woman's vagina. And I was like, what? Like, first of all, that's pretty gross. Second of all, you know, you think it's kind of shameful. I shouldn't know what a black woman's vagina looks like, but why is he staring at the horses? And then we're being compared to that.
Wow.
And I mean, I really think they think that way, equating black females with animals and stuff. And I wouldn't put it past. Imagine that guy might have sexually abused one of those animals there.
You know what?
These are some things white males talk about when they're not around black females, and I was trying to figure out why he would tell that to my partner, who's a black male. You know, if it was supposed to show, I know what your women are like, or I don't know, it was just perverse.
Man, that's
their mindset.
You heard that sound clip? I was just the sound clip with Dr. Head where he said that they had his face on a gorilla and a white man sodomizing the gorilla.
Yeah.
There's another movie. Now, I wouldn't suggest sitting through the entire thing because it was torturous for us when we watched it, but the movie Rampart with Woody Harrelson. If you watch it toward the beginning of the movie, he is a police officer in Los Angeles with the LAPD Rampart Division. He's a bad cop. He's racist. He mistreats the white women in his life. But it's interesting because in one, he is having a sexual affair with one particular white woman, and like the very next night after that, he goes to this like seedy bar and picks up a black female and ends up in bed with her that same night. And it's actually Audra McDonald in the role. I'm trying to think of what she plays in, if you can look her up, but in real life she's actually married to a white man as well. But it's just interesting to me how in a lot of these films where they show white males sexually sewering black females, often these black females are in tragic arrangements in real life. But it was just like, it was kind of like a sucker punch to be watching something like that as a black female and see a white man sexually conquer a white female and then immediately do the same thing to a black female, showing she has no value to him, and then go right back to being with a white woman again. You know, basically showing that the black female is an easy prostitute. You know, you say a few witty things, buy her a drink at a bar, you know, and then you take her to bed, do what you want to do, and get up and go back to your white life, abusing black and other non-white people. But it's called Rampart.
Well, you know, when I remember when I was growing up, I used to read a lot of the novels. My parents were big readers. They have books around the house. And when you read some of the older novels, you can see that anytime a non-white female is mentioned, if she's attractive, she was a beautiful animal. I mean, I actually read this not too long ago. No, actually, I listened to it. I was listening to some kind of old film or something like that, and it was a female that I think she was Hispanic or something like that, and he described it in terms of, you know, she was like a beautiful animal, and so you'll see constant references to non-white females as animalistic, you know, animalistic terms, and that's just a constant, which I think that a lot of the appeal of black people sexually for white people is a form of bestiality, particularly with black males. Well, not just particularly black males, but black people, period. And sometimes the darker the black person, the more bestial the fantasy. So black people that see these white people in their faces, you might want to consider, you know, whether it's a compliment or not. You know, chances are it probably isn't. And if it is a compliment, what is it really saying? That this person still wants to practice racism, white supremacy, yet they want to be with you.
I also wonder at times, Pam, if something in them is trying to return to some form of humanity by getting our genetics through sex. You know, because anywhere you look at the original people in any place, they all are melanated, and usually heavily melanated. And it's something different about them. It just makes me wonder, are they something other than human, the original human, and are they attempting to graft genes from us to be able to survive? Is it something in their subconscious, despite the racism, that's driving them to try to get something from us, that, you know, they just can't keep black people or non-white people out of their beds?
You make a really good point because that's another component of the white female, particularly the ones that desire to have brown babies. I do think that the white female is on a subconscious or genetic level, DNA level, she's trying to save the white race. And they do desperately need, when you look at all the technology and science, in vitro fertilization, I mean, the list is long, sperm donors, sperm banks, all kinds of fertility drugs. And so you have to wonder, what is it that's going on with them? Of course, they're aware of it more than we are. And my guru says that they're really trying to attempt to create a new white race, one that is more genetically stable, one that is stronger genetically. And the only way they can do that is to get the genetic material of non-white people. They also admit that the European is a hybrid. This is white people saying it. A hybrid between the Neanderthal and man. Now, what is Neanderthal? What is man? If the European is a hybrid formed from man, he can't be the original man. Who is the man that he's talking about? It has to be the African man. So I believe that genetics are breaking down. I think we're going to see increasingly, I believe that some of them are actually returning to the Neanderthal roots, and you're going to see a lot of unstable behavior. You're going to see a lot of desperation, because it seems like if you look at their behavior, like that guy trying to kiss Will Smith, it's almost bizarre. They also had on this one show this black male who was collecting black penises on this interior design show.
White male.
Sorry, white male. I'm sorry. This white male was on the interior therapy show that's on Bravo TV, and he had a collection of black penises.
Shut up.
Wow. Yeah, and so they showed it on TV. They were handling the penises, and they were chuckling and everything. And I was thinking, like, what kind of man, period, wants to have a collection of penises? But what kind of white man wants to have a collection of black penises? I believe there's a direct relationship.
Anti-sexual one.
Yeah. But also, there's some desire to covet what the black man has, genetically. There's some desire to covet his genitals, to experience his genitals, to ingest that chocolate, to get that chocolate inside their bodies. The white male and the white female seem to be obsessed with black male sexuality. So the question is why?
I was doing a little Googling once after reading an article on one of these interracial black female sites where they were making the accusation that black men were obsessed with their penises and penis size. So I don't remember what I start Googling, but you know how like sometimes you will Google a topic and then a book will come up from Google Books and it's more than just a sample? And it was some book written probably during the colonial days, and it was just so bizarre because what it was, and I think I saw something there as well as one of J.A. Rogers' books, but they were discussing the length and size of African males' penises. And I thought to myself, who in the hell goes across the other side of the ocean to measure another man's penis? Like, that is bizarre.
Yes, it
like,
is.
It's something really deficient psychologically to be doing that. Like, I don't care what some other woman's vagina is. I really don't care and really don't want to know. But that they are so obsessed with it to try to do scientific, studies of it and documentation. For what purpose? It's just really, really bizarre. But I wanted to share this. I can't fully expound on it because I'm still trying to understand more of it. But what you were talking about with them coming from somewhere else, I was having a conversation with a spiritual leader about the book of Genesis and the origin of white people. And I was told that in the book of Genesis, the story where we're commonly told it's a serpent or snake in the garden, that's a mistranslation. And it was something called Nahashim, I believe is how you pronounce it. It was a reptilian creature, according to the oral tradition, I guess, that existed before man was put on the earth. And when man was given dominion over the earth, this creature was envious because it felt like the earth should belong to it to control and dominate. And that in that tradition, that creature reproduced with Eve, and her two first children, Cain and Abel, were the children of the Nahashim, so they were hybrids. And that the man referred to as Adam when it says he also ate of the fruit, slept with the female consort of this reptilian-like creature, and those became the children. When it says that Cain went and married the daughters in the land of Nod or something like that, that's what they were, and they can reproduce among themselves, but they could also reproduce with humans, at least at that time. And if you know anything about later on when it talks about the sons of God saw the children of the daughters of men and married them or lusted after them or something. So like I said, I'm not really well versed in it, but somehow in this tradition they believe that the Nahashim, as well as those hybrid creatures, I guess it would be the Nephilim or something, somehow formed white people. And that this is what was posed to me as a possibility, that when you hear about white people having all of these experiences with alien abductions, that these aliens, whatever they are, have something to do with either the Nahashim or some other being that is trying to use them to graft a body for itself so that it can have dominion over the earth once again. And in order to do that, they do need some of our genetics because we are man. We are the original man or humans. And so they need that. And it, it's something to stretch your mind out, but it's interesting. It's very interesting to consider, especially looking at their behavior and the fact that everywhere they go, they are known to try to dominate and control every living thing, whether it be plant or human.
Yeah, that is interesting.
What are we fighting against? I'm just, because, that stuff is really interesting. I mean, like, what are we fighting against at the end of the day? Like, they ain't no telling what the hell they are.
Well, I know one thing. Their numbers are low.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say their numbers are low, and so are their birth rates, and they definitely seem desperate.
Yeah.
Which makes them dangerous.
That's why they're trying to push this homosexual agenda thing in regards to in our community. It's more of like a multi-pronged like thing. On top of pushing the homosexual agenda, they're trying to also take the minority class status away from us to give it to whites because they're already seeing that their numbers are going to drop, and if they're able to do that, then soon you're going to be hearing, white males being able to claim that they're the minority. It's like they planned this ahead because, as you see, like you said, Pam and the other guests, their populations around the world, worldwide, are falling. And you could see the same thing in South Africa when all of the conflict broke out. And they, it's almost as they feel that their days are numbered. And so they're trying to make plans to prepare the remaining people who are in power to so that way they can hold on to their status and their position. And by pushing this lifestyle on us, it serves, multiple purposes. One, population control, and, having access. If you pass a law, allowing same-sex marriage, it has ramifications all across the board. You're going to have people like Sandusky, having full access to, children. And because he's going to be under minority status. Now, it's not saying that he didn't make a crime, but as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 will basically be obsolete because this special group or special class of people will now be categorized amongst African Americans. And I was watching on YouTube one of the LGBT leaders had asked Tavis Smiley his position on same-sex marriage. And, Tavis Smiley, I don't agree with some of the things, but I'm glad that, he stood up and at least, said that, he wasn't for it. Cornel West apparently is, has openly supported it. But I just see that there's a deception even amongst our leaders. Like, nobody's not talking about the legal standpoint from it. Everybody is getting side-bended on the religious aspects of it. It doesn't matter whatever faith you come from. We all know that, it's just, it goes against the laws of nature. You don't even have to bring the Bible into it. But it's, a people with a behavioral issue trying to impose it on people that are already victimized by various abuses, trying to take your legal status that's recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court.
As Dr. Julia Hare said, I would not call them black leaders. I would just call them leading blacks.
That is correct.
They're definitely paid public white supremacists.
Yes.
Have you all noticed that it seems to me that there's an increasing number of mental disorders or psychological disorders among white people leading to violence? There was something on 2020 last night, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It started with an M, but it's some sort of disorder where the people who have it are very irritated, agitated, and set off to violent behavior by sound. And usually it's like somebody crunching on chips, swallowing, slurping, smacking, maybe a pen clicking, but it gets them so agitated that they become violent. And they even showed Kelly Ripa from the ABC show. It used to be Regis and Kelly, now it's just Kelly or whatever. But she has it. And she can't be in the room with her husband, when he's eating or chewing food. It sets her off. It really drives her nuts. They showed one white male. He can't even have an office on the same floor as his business partner because the little noises drive him like crazy. And there was a white girl. It drives her to the point of violence to even hear her mother swallow. But the only people I see, at least that they feature with these disorders, are white people, and I'm just wondering what it is about things like that. And then,
I went to school with white people. I went to school with white people at elementary school and most high school, but man, there was these kids, a couple of kids in particular, that it was their catchphrase was I'm not overreacting. And when they'd be saying this, they'd be their face would be red and they'd be screaming about some tiny little thing that happened. But that's classic. They blow up over nothing. But
do you remember Peggy McIntosh when she was on the program saying that when she did her blue eyes, brown eyes experiment, that it was white males who had the most trouble not being in control?
Jane Elliott.
Remember that? Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I never heard that.
I know that a lot of the problems our children have are based on, conditions, like the environment that they live in, a lack of quality education, poverty, mistreatment. But I often wonder with a lot of the things I see going on with white children and with white people, where does it come from? If you have access to the most resources, you generally have the best living conditions among all people. What is it?
Good point.
I think they do suffer from more nervous disorders. Now, my own personal theory is every hybrid, it eventually deconstructs. And it kind of reminds me of the movie The Fly, where the man turned into a fly turned into a man, and at some point going back and forth, the whole thing just broke down. So if they are in hybrid, and I'm saying that they say they are, could it be that something in the genetic chain is breaking down? And, there's something going on with them. Either we're getting more information and they've always been like this, or there's something going on with them, because it does seem that the amount of pedophilia, has it always been there? I don't know. And the amount of bestiality has always been there? I don't know. Just the irrational behavior, the dependency. I mean, nobody likes drugs. I mean, I read stuff sometimes, I'm like, wow, another way to get high? I mean, these white children, they are really creative. I mean, sniffing this and sniffing that and hanging from trees, and it's self-asphyxiation. And so you have to wonder, what is it that you're trying to escape from? Why is they talk about heroin use is surging in the suburbs, which is a code word for white people. Prescription drugs is off the chain. Somebody had an article last year that said, I think it was like, wow, I forget what percentage, like 25% of people in Europe are mentally ill. Now, they're writing stories about themselves, so I don't know what's going on with them, but I do think that their breakdown is, while it may give us some pleasure, is not something to really celebrate, because the more they break down, the more dangerous they get. The smaller their numbers, the more threatened they feel, the more dangerous they get. So we're not in the position to take it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the nature of like we talk about recessive, like with the Crest theory, talking about the recessive nature. It made me think about if you separate black people from non-black people, just for mental exercises, what's different about black people than everyone else is the fact that we are the dominant genetically people. So then. And the other difference is that every other group of people have some admixture of the Neanderthal genetics, or some type of pre-human genetics, and then it's like the only difference. So then the reason those people that they mix with to make themselves, the reason they're not around is because they were recessive genetically. So something happened to where they express their recessive nature by leaving the planet in whatever way that we're not allowed to know about, because we're not in the know, because we've been kept in this broken down state. So then what happened to them? How did they find their way out of this universe? What is the nature of a recessive thing in being rare, something that's rare in the universe? And it's very interesting just how and I'm a dark-skinned black male. I've never been with a non-white female in my life, so I'll just put that out there. But not that I'm with any now. That's all over. But I had a white girlfriend in high school, and she was all she's one of the she was all into Bob Marley and all this Jimi Hendrix and stuff, and she's kind of wealthy in New York, East Side, and lived by Fifth Avenue, and had her dad was a French maitre d', or a manager of some really high-end French restaurant, and she would talk about how she had a fantasy where she wanted to have sex with a lion. That was her sexual fantasy, that have sex with a lion. And this woman, she wasn't crazy, she was very sought after, very cosmopolitan, kind of aspiring actress, very social. But I mean, we take it for granted just how they turned it all inside out. And we're looking at these pale, genetic, monsters, and we've taken them as being oh, that's normal, white, aka normal, but it's not normal, doesn't look normal. Yeah.
I would advise you, if you could take it, if anybody, now this is in my research, I've noticed when I go to some public pornography sites, looking at the differences in the way they label black females versus white females in the video titles, oftentimes I would see these pop-up ads on the side. And what most of them would be when it came to white females, it would be a white female having sex with some monster. And it would be to where the monster's genitals hung all the way down like by his knees and was almost as big as his legs. And every single time the monster was black or some shade of gray. And I'm thinking maybe the fantasy white females have, but it's definitely one that white males seem to enjoy because that's who dominates that industry. But there does seem to be some fascination they have in having sex with animals and black people.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. It's been normalized. Sorry. Yeah, normalized.
I just wanted to ask a question to the female caller who was talking about, her suspicions about white people's origins. Have you seen the movie The Fourth Kind? And if so, what did you think about it?
No, I haven't seen that yet. You said The Fourth Kind, K-I-N-D?
Yes, The Fourth Kind. Because I remember when you were talking about, you mentioned something about, something about aliens or whatever. And in the movie The Fourth Kind, this white woman is a psychiatrist, and first she has, a lot. It's supposedly based on a true story, and she has all of these patients, and they keep, telling her about this story that they've all had, and all of the details about each one of their stories are the same. And long story short, it turns out to have some kind of extraterrestrial element to it, and it's plaguing these white people like crazy. And before the end, she has to bring in this black man who's an expert on a language that the aliens are using, which is ancient Sumerian. And it's just like these extraterrestrials terrorizing these white people. And I just thought about that when you mentioned that thing about aliens, and wanted to know if you saw the movie.
Well, I haven't seen that, but even in noticing some of the other media, I just noticed this intense focus that they have on aliens, alien abductions. Like, consider the show, I worked on the X-Files. Consider X-Files. Now, I got a DVD bundle from someone with multiple episodes, and on every single one of them, the aliens are always after white people. It's always white people that have this thing in their families on this show, of some sort of alien or extraterrestrial abduction. There's another movie that I saw, and I can't think of the name. We were watching it on a train. It probably came out within the last, it's called High 8. So it's about these white children that have this High 8 video camera, and they decide to make a movie. So they go to a train station. There's some sort of accident where they're there and the train crashes and implodes, and there's a black male in the movie. It's not the actor, it's not Glenn Turman, but he kind of resembles him, older black male. He sees documented what happens. I think he tells the children to get out of there, and there's some vague warning about them or something happening. What ends up happening eventually, all the metal keeps getting sucked out of the town, and all the white people are going crazy trying to figure out what's happening, and all of a sudden there's some sort of alien attack on the town, right? Now, the white people are trying to kill this black male. He works with the military. I think he's some sort of scientist, and he's been in this for years, but it turns out there's some top secret thing going on where some aliens got trapped on Earth. They're trying to rebuild their spaceship with metal. Sorry if I'm spoiling it, but they are collecting metal to rebuild their ship so they can go back to where they came from. Now, when it shows clips back in the day, the white people caged this alien up, and they have him like he somehow is collecting stuff and going underground with it. But when they showed him in the lab years back, they would do stuff to the alien to torture it and, just really messing with it, just being savage like they always are, and cruel. Well, the black male is the lone one in that organization who the alien would talk to and communicate with. He was actually trying to help it so it could build its spaceship and go back to where it came from, and the white people were warned against it to either control it or completely destroy it. But I noticed with the black male, I'm like, if you pay attention to some movies, you'll notice how it seems like if there is something foreign or alien, it's the darker character, darker-skinned character, who is on a more spiritual plane and can communicate with it, even like an avatar.
Right.
But it seems like you recognize that even in that what is that popular movie that was out where you got the vampires and the werewolves and they're teenagers in it?
Twilight.
Yes. In the last one, did you notice that the werewolves were all darker-skinned people, and the vampires were white people, and it was the werewolf covenant they had made with humanity to protect them? So the darker-skinned ones had the connection with the earth and to protect so-called humans?
Yeah,
These are ongoing things I notice in a lot of their movies.
But you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm sorry. You can go ahead, man.
No, you go ahead.
And I was just thinking about another aspect of what you were talking about before, how you were kind of thinking about like how these aliens or whatever they may be are using white bodies to do what they want to do or whatever. And I'm thinking about another aspect of that movie, The Fourth Kind, where there's this moment kind of like at the end of the movie where the black man, the alien force has taken possession of this woman's body, and they're just it's kind of like almost an exorcism that's taking place. And they're talking in Sumerian, and the black man is translating. You know, there again, like the black man is able to communicate with that higher force. But the alien kind of says something where it kind of denotes some possession of her white body and her white child, kind of like, I made you and I own you. You are not like this black person. You are not like the other people. You are property. You are something made.
Excuse me, Pumpkin.
You know I'm sorry, go ahead.
I got a question for you. When you were talking earlier about I forget exactly how to phrase it. Did you have a book that you had been reading or something that you had gotten that information from?
Actually, I was talking to a black Jewish rabbi.
Okay.
And he is Jewish by birth. On his maternal side, they are African Jews, Moroccan. And these are things that he learned from, I'm assuming, his uncle, as well as the rabbi that he learned under, who was not white, but did his rabbinical studies and learned from other African rabbis as well. But I'm not sure if these things are in the Talmud, if they are in the Zohar, because I'm not real familiar with all of that stuff. But it was just really interesting, because see, what's been explained to me is that what we have is the Gentile translation of the Bible. So there are a lot of things that if you speak and read Hebrew, or if you read and understand it, that will give you more than what we get in the English. Because, you know, I like that I can ask questions all the time. And the answers have been getting really interesting, especially as his understanding of racism, white supremacy has been increasing. I'll tell you another thing he explained to me. Now, first of all, because I know a lot of us have this misconception because of what we're given by Gentiles about the Talmud, that these Ashkenazim or white Jews wrote it. At the time the Talmud was in existence, these people didn't even know about a Torah or Judaism. So they didn't write it. In the Talmud, it says that Israel's black. It says that Israel went to Africa after the destruction of the temple. So that is in there. But what was explained to me is that in Hebrew, if you remember, Jacob, he had his two wives, right? He loved Rachel. He wanted to marry her. But their father, Laban, or Laban, constantly tricked him and cheated him in every covenant that he made with him. So he worked 7 years to win her. You know, he tricked him the first time and gave him his older daughter, Leah. And so I was told that in Hebrew, the word Laban means white, literally like the color. And so you look at the character Laban, and he was a trickster. He was a deceiver. He broke covenants and didn't keep them. He tried more than one time to cheat Jacob or Jacob. He tried to cheat him multiple times. Well, I was told that later on, if any of you are familiar with the story of, I think it's a false prophet named Balaam. I think he was a false prophet. Well, anyway, some other guy wanted to pay him to curse the children of Israel. And I was told that the one trying to curse them was the grandson of Lavan. And that in the Hebrew text, that word Lavan and anybody associated with that word or characterized by it was associated with trickery and deception and trying to undermine Israel, who were a group of black people. But this is stuff we're not going to be taught, of course, not by the Ashkenazim because they're white, so they're protecting, the system of white supremacy. And most of us who got Christianity and the Bible, from the English translations, we're not going to know that because it's not in there either. Because we're reading in English, we're not reading the Hebrew and being taught to look at these things. But it was pretty darn interesting. It's opened my eyes to think about a lot more now. Because before, when people would say like aliens, I don't believe in aliens. No, black people don't see aliens.
Yeah, I always wondered about that.
Go ahead.
I said I always wondered about that. Why it just seemed like white people were the ones that seemed to be, for the most part, experiencing alien abductions.
Yeah, I was telling him I think it would be very constructive if he was to do an interview, about these things. Because I'm like, man, I'm the only one, hearing this. Like, I think more people should know about it. And some people would reject it, and that's okay. Everybody doesn't believe everything, but it's definitely an interesting look at it from another culture of black people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of us have never even met a black rabbi, So that would be interesting just by...
They exist, but because of white supremacy,
mm-hmm.
the image of the white Jew dominates it, just like the image of, I guess, the white Muslim, the so-called Arabs. But I know particularly, I do believe there's, Rabbi Capers Funay is in Chicago, but I know there are also rabbis in New York, more so in the East Coast.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
I wanted to introduce you to a guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, called Barbour Hammett. Last name is spelled Hemmitt. If
I've heard
you check
of him.
out, if you listen to him, he actually put out a lot of that information that you're talking about, as far as that you get from the rabbi. I was actually studying to be a pastor, and now I'm an atheist. And one of the reasons why I'm an atheist is because while I can't read the Hebrew, it's enough black scholars out there who've actually translated a lot of information that if you actually just do a lot of studying on your own, you can actually find a lot of that information already translated. And again, Brother Bobby is a person who put out all the information that you're talking about. And then the other information that you were talking about as far as white men doing penicides, if I'm not mistaken, I think the name of that book is The White Man's Burden. And they talk about when they went to Africa, the first thing they noticed was our nudity, our ability to be free with ourselves, our sexuality, free with our culture, that we didn't covet the gold. They would tell you how the streets were paved in gold, that we just used it as a mineral. We didn't covet it. We didn't mind giving stuff away and sharing, and how the white man wanted to own everything. So if you read The White Man's Burden, also if you read the history of white people, also in the Nation of Islam, the owner, I can't remember his name, he actually talks about how, I'm sorry?
Is it Fard Muhammad?
Yeah. If you read about, if you read the writings of the Nation of Islam, I can't remember the actual guy.
It was probably either Fard Muhammad or Elijah Muhammad.
Okay, yes. If you read Elijah Muhammad's writing, he talks about how white people was created. He puts out a lot of history to this that a lot of people didn't believe him. And when he put out a lot of this history, how the white man was created, he talks about a lot of the lies that to this now they're starting to actually say that a lot of the information he put out was true. Brother Malcolm talked about also the history of white people. So, again, a lot of the information has been put out by your black scholars. Most times we just don't know who to read. And, yeah, so Bobby Hammett has a lot of information put out on YouTube about what's going on. And, yes, white people have always been doing a study of us since the first time they met us. They've been fascinated with everything about us. And then when you were talking about Gentiles, if you actually look in Genesis, I think it's chapter 10, most African Americans don't know that we are not Gentiles. If you study if you look at Paul, when Paul did his journey, he actually only went through Europe. He didn't preach in Africa. And if you notice, when he tried to talk the crazy stuff in Africa, they was ready to kill him. That only one of the guys who was with Jesus, and I forget his name, he's the only one who accepted him. And then he actually has a book. If you read the apocryphal, I'm not pronouncing it right, but I could always send you the information. That, yes, it's so much information out there that you would have to read on your own to really get a full understanding. And one of the other things that I want to touch on is that me being an atheist, it is very interesting trying to date African-American women now. Because when I meet African-American women, the first thing they say out their mouth is, I want me a brother who loves God. So I have two options. I either can be upfront about me being atheist, which doesn't work out well, or I actually have to withhold that information until the person actually likes me. Is that a better? Until they see me for who I am and not necessarily because I don't believe in their particular form of religion. So I don't know if anybody can kind of speak on that as from a woman perspective. If you've ever met a brother who's an atheist and you've actually dated him knowing that he was an atheist from the beginning compared to learning later on in life. So most of the women I've dated now being an atheist, they know me before I became an atheist, so they don't have a problem with it. They still do a little bit, but it's not as if trying to meet a woman from the beginning and saying that I'm an atheist. Because most times when I tell a woman that I'm an atheist, African-American woman, I'm cut off at the knees. So that's that information that I wanted to put out.
Ooh. For myself, I would rather know that up front, because I think I would feel cheated if I wanted a man who was not an atheist and who shared common beliefs or spiritual practices with me, and then I got my feelings involved and was spending time with him, and then found out that we had nothing in common in that way, and I hadn't been told. I'd rather know that up front. But it wouldn't stop me from having a friendship with the person.
And that's exactly what I get. And see, that's exactly what I get. I'll be a friend with you, but I wouldn't necessarily go any further. So while me being an individual who's dated non-white women, now that, I'm leaving dating non-white women, now a new area that I face is that I'm an atheist. I don't support the white religion at all. So, and then for me, when I hear African-American sisters come on the radio and you learn more and more about the fallacies of Christianity, how you still believe in it. And then you say, I love our people, but you still support a white supremacist culture that doesn't support us. And then if you also start to read the relationship between the blacks and the Jews, you learn that the Jews, they supported slavery. They funded all of the ships. They funded Christopher Columbus. They funded everything. They owned a lot of the shipping agencies. So I find that for me, this is just for me, that we say we support each other, but then on the other side, we support the same people or institutions that still enslave us. So I kind of find it, okay, what do you want me to do?
Well, I would say this.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say this about the Jews. It's not their book. It's not their religion. They've usurped it like everything else. And you'll find people throughout the non-white world that have been practicing Judaism before these people ever heard of it. So like many other things, they've usurped it. If I ever was going to do anything regarding Judaism or learn anything about it, I don't go to white people for that learning or understanding at all. But there are black atheists, but I just think, even for you, to make life easier, it's best that you be upfront, because then you don't waste time with people who would not be compatible because of that, Yeah.
And the one thing that I find most interesting when you say the word compatible, when I actually sit down with a person and say, okay, let's sit down and see what we don't agree with. And you'd be surprised that most times once people leave the God out of it, we actually agree on a lot of the same things. So I think when you have a better understanding of what it is most people think they believe in compared to what they actually practice in their everyday life, completely different. So, I just always encourage people to really research what you claim to believe in. I always get in an argument. People say, well, I'm a Baptist. I say, well, you're still Catholic. No, I don't believe in this. Yes, you do. You still believe in the same thing. It's all the same. You still read the same book, and nothing has changed. Just because you try to darken it up, it doesn't change the fact that you still read the same information. You still support a lot of the same institutions that help to enslave us mentally. So, it's one of them things that you actually have to step outside of yourself to really understand what's really going on. And I don't support any religion, whether it's Islam, Christianity. All of them have taken African culture and kind of tried to do what they want to do. And it's just like you said, the spiritual leader that you was talking about, he told you that it was African. So why take secondhand information? If you want the real information, just learn African culture. And it is enough black scholars out there that you can get all the information that you want without having to take it from secondhand people. And to me, I feel as though we've been taking a lot of secondhand information, and we don't have to. It's too many scholars out there.
That was in reference to the Israelites being African people, not the white people taking it from Africans and reforming something else. Because as I said, it's not their book and it's not their religion. They've hijacked and usurped it. When he said African, he didn't mean white people formed it from something African. He means the Israelites were black African people.
Oh, no, okay, and I agree with you 100%. And the white man, they took it, but then, and I agree, okay, and I understand, and I apologize if I misunderstood that.
Oh, no worries.
15 minutes, about 15 minutes left in the program. Do not wait till the last minute. If you think you have something that you want to share, you should get your hand up now. If you're listening in, if you haven't, got your comment and or question, Mr. Ehrenberg, if he's still out there listening, I would be interested. I don't know if any of the other listeners, but I would be interested if he got any flack or abuse from any of the white people who tune into his program as a result of the broadcast that we did this past Tuesday. I know he had said that some of the white people were not pleased and began their name calling and that sort of thing. So if Mr. Berg is out there, if he's listening, I would definitely appreciate hearing that before we wrap up, if we have time, if he's interested, and any of the other folks, about a little less than 15 minutes.
Oh, and the last information I wanted to, hello?
I was just going to ask, wasn't there a black female that was trying to say something a few minutes ago?
Oh, I don't know.
Is she still there?
Oh, the other information is the Apostle Paul. If if you just have the time, and I already have the information if you want it, if you read most people who believe or in Jesus Christ, if you actually study the Apostle Paul, everything he talks about with Jesus is direct conflict of exactly what Jesus said. And most people don't realize that we people who believe in Christianity today follow the Pauline epistles, which is in the direct conflict of what Jesus said when he actually came here. So, it's so many contradictions. So when I really sit down with people and I get them to really understand what it is they claim they believe compared to what it is they know, completely different. So I just encourage everyone, where if you want to believe in a God, I don't disagree with that. But make sure you know exactly what it is you believe in. Don't just run around wearing a T-shirt and a hat, talking about I believe in this and this is true, and it's not. Because I've come to realize that most people put out information because they're either ignorant of history or they assume that you are ignorant of history and you'll fall for anything. And most of us are ignorant of history. So we believe anything and we just follow.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on Paul, and I've had people almost want to fight me for saying the same thing about him. White and non-white.
Mr. Berg should be on the line with us as well. Good to hear from you, sir.
Hello, Gus. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. It's good to talk to you again.
For sure. I did want to make sure, again, I was a guest on Mr. Berg's program, Reality Unknown, here at TalkShoe this past week. Interesting conversation, hearing from some of the white people, racist suspects who tuned into the program. What feedback did you get from, I guess, your white listeners? Let's go with them first. What feedback did you get from white people listening to that program?
Well, I guess I can go to the call. Let me be clear that I have had talks with those people before. I've known Kevin for like 3 years, Kevin Parsons, and then Ed Clannett Chatton. I've heard of him for about Ed Allen for about 2 years, and then Carol, I recently started a relationship with her on TalkShoe with the last 4 or 5 months. So Carol is black, female. I found out that her, not to gossip or anything, but basically I found out that her grandfather is white, so she does have white in her family lineage. Kevin, I've always kind of been thought that he was a possible racist, even 2 years ago when I had a falling out with him. And then just coincidentally, when I started streaming Racism and White Supremacy audios, he called in. He never called in before that. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like about the same time I started doing Racism and White Supremacy broadcasts, he decided to call in. So that he basically, all you have to do is go to my TalkShoe page, and it was just, the chat room was out of control. 195 guests logged in, and they were basically at least one or two individuals. I had all guests blocked, but it was just trifling racist comments, the N-word. Kevin is now accusing me of being a racist, the biggest racist, and then he made a comment saying, well, good luck with your Malcolm X friends. He called you a C sucker. He called you a N, of course, word. What else? He said you were full of S. And then I did another broadcast where he was just name-calling and belligerent. I finally blocked him. And then he came back as a different name, and I kind of outed him. I let him call in again, but I think this is very important. When he really got upset is when he challenged me on your knowledge, and basically he stated that you were full of S. And I was like, I don't think so. I think Gus knows more about how the world really works than you do. And he asked me, are you serious? And I said, yes. He paused for a while. Then he told me, F you, and he hung up. And I think that's very important that I think he's an overt racist. Actually, his wife, Kane, called in on I do a reality PC broadcast, is computer related. She admitted to me that she knows there's a system of white supremacy. And then she told me, don't do it. Don't be prejudiced. So that's what happens when us non-whites, when we start talking about racism, what a lot of overt racists or closet racists, they will automatically either, there's different tactics, but one tactic is they will accuse you of being a reverse racist or a prejudice. So that's Kevin, who now wants nothing to do with me, and that's okay. So there was obvious white lash, pun intended. Ed Clannett Chatton, I've heard his broadcast. He does a talk show as well, and so does Kevin Parsons. Ed Allen, and I'm simulcasting right now, so just to let you know. I think Ed is also an overt racist. However, he's more refined. He's more cordial about it. He denies that he's a racist white supremacist, but there's no doubt in my mind, over a year ago, I came to a conclusion that he's pushing an agenda of racism, white supremacy. He basically says that non-whites shouldn't have guns. The law is not for non-whites. What else? The Constitution was written for white people. He makes statements that white people should be the only people in America with like, I'm not quoting verbatim, but I'm trying to paraphrase, that only white people should have positions of power. What else? I've heard him make comments that if it wasn't for white people in Africa, Africa would be complete chaos and disorder. But Ed Allen studies law, so he's very precise. However, I think he does distort reality, and he will obfuscate things. And I think it was obvious he did that. Both him and Kevin did that. What they will do is they will use the vortex, they will circle wagons, they will throw you in a dry cleaner, and then they will spin you off into the deepest recesses of the universe when you ask them questions, because they don't like it. So I got flack. Another interesting thing, Vicky Macon, who was in chat, and I've also had discussions with her in primarily civil, cordial manner. Well, I found out that she had a offspring with a biracial, whatever that abstraction means. That could be a code word, but I don't know what non-white, but so I learned that she has had a child with a non-white individual. So I find that very interesting that in chat she called you a Black Panther N. And so this is coming from a woman that has a child with a non-white male. And see, so a little bit of more white lash. There were two other individuals. There was an Australian male, Don, who I've had a lot of discussions with. He didn't like my moderation. He's called you what? Let me look real quick. Oh, both him and Kevin claim that you're an agent provocateur that practiced neurolinguistic programming. And also he wrote that by me having you as a guest that he doesn't want me to fall for divide and conquer. And also he said, learn to see beyond black and white. So I thought that was an interesting comment. So basically, you had what I consider, I've suspected racists that I already had suspected. They came out and attacked me, and then you had the closet ones that came out and attacked me, and the chat room was just crazy. What you can do is, if you're not aware of this, there's a program called Chat Grabber. You go to chatgrabber.com, and you can look at the chat transcript for previous broadcasts. Like, I can go back right now and look at everything that was typed into chat on Tuesday night. And all you do is go to that website and you type in the call ID. Like, people could type in yours, Gus. So they type in 97250, and then they'll be able to see everything that was typed in this evening. So basically now I'm labeled as, my ratings took a hit, but I don't care about that. I'm not here to be popular. Obviously, Kevin and his wife despise me now. They unfollowed me and they labeled me a racist, and that's okay. I don't think it's okay, but I was already suspicious of them, so whatever. I'm just going to move on. So now I'm labeled a racist and an N lover, and I'm prejudiced and all this stuff. So that's basically the white lash that occurred after Tuesday's broadcast.
Wow. To be expected. Wow. Programming.
Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. That is good information about the Chat Grabber. Folks could use that. You just, what is the website that you go to?
Here, I'll get it right now, and I'll post it in your chat.
Outstanding. Right on.
Just give me a...
Oh, take your time. Again, we'll be back tomorrow evening. That would be Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, Joris Dubreeze. He'll be joining us live from New Zealand, suspected racist from the other side of the planet. Be good to compare and contrast. I would tell folks, might be interesting to check out the program where I was a guest on Mr. Berg's broadcast. Kevin and Ed, racist suspects, they called in. I used a sound clip from that yesterday to begin the study session on Yurugu. I think Ed, excellent illustration of the racist white Asili, what they are all about, their Umawazo, their worldview, how they think about things. Excellent demonstration. Yeah, you can check out the archives, Reality Unknown. Before we close out, anything, we got it in the chat room, groovy, chatgrabber.com, chatgrabber.com. Much obliged, Mr. Berg. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to make sure they got in before we wrap up?
If everyone would, I'm not sure if I've heard C.O.W.S come on your show, like last month, I believe. I had sent him information on what I had been talking about earlier. So he's done I think it's so far like a 6-part series on the homosexual agenda. If everybody would go on YouTube and either subscribe to him if you're not already, or at least look at the series so you can get a clear picture of what's going on, help people understand, be less confused.
Afrosynergy, you can do a search and it'll pop up. I think the link is in the description for the program, but you might have to dig back in the archives to find it. So you can just search Afrosynergy on YouTube and it should pop up. Generally, he has great information talking about racism and white supremacy most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just had one more thing. I was hoping that, I don't know if this is too far in advance, but I think our conversation, the first hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours or before the callers, again, I had previous discussions with those people. It wasn't like they were strangers and they called, you know what I'm saying, and then they called in. And however, definitely 2 out of the 3 are on my list of they're racist white supremacists. They'll deny it, but whatever. Carol, I think she identifies as black, but she has white in her family lineage, and I pretty much smooth things out with her. So, but I was hoping in July 15th, if you would come back, and then we don't have to take callers, and that way we're not interrupted, because I think it was extremely productive that first 2 hours or so.
Oh, sure. White people permitting, that would be fine. July 15th, yeah, that would be fine. White people permitting. I guess I would say I don't really have a problem taking calls. I guess the only thing I would say about the calls is I don't think it's constructive. And I guess for programs, if I'm listening, right, if I'm not participating, if I'm just listening, I don't think it's constructive when people allow the guests, like this doesn't count because this is just a call-in, but if it's a program where there's a guest and people allow the callers to dial in and dominate the conversation where they end up talking for like 10, 15 minutes, and they want to give their view on what's going on, that I tend to think is not constructive. If they're just going to ask a question or make a quick comment, I can deal with that, but people who call in and they just want to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, that I don't think is constructive. That I don't, I'm not feeling that too much. But particularly if it's white people, that is great. I think a lot of the people who listened, I was simulcasting as well. I know people were listening and writing in the chat room over here. I thought it was very constructive. Kevin and Ed, when they called, man, I don't know if anybody who's on the line now, if they heard that part, but I thought that was super constructive. I didn't have a problem with that at all. I think it's always best. You really get to demonstrate your ability to use words to counter racist man, racist woman when you are talking to a white person. Just some of the things that I remember when you ask a white person a question, Kevin didn't answer my question. He responded with a question. He did a lot of the things that we've talked about, saying that he's a victim of racism and black people beat me up trying to go to school and all that. I mean, just standards. So I thought that was great. If white people call into your program the next time, if we're able to do it again, I would love to hear from them there as well, because at the end of the day, they are the problem. And I think we are going to have to get to a point where we can be effective in revealing truth and using words in a precise manner when it's time to talk to racist man, racist woman, racist child, because those are the folks that are in charge. So, yeah, I thought I didn't have a problem at all with Kevin and Ed's participation. I thought that was great. Thought it was a great chance to reveal their nature. I'm hoping some non-white people listening to that program got some constructive value. I know people did chime in on this end and say that they thought it was constructive hearing from Mr. Ed and Kevin.
Oh, can I share one comment? One comment real quick is one person wrote a comment. I don't know if they're non-white. They might be. I think they probably are. But let me read it to you real quick, because it was amazing what they said. They said, out of all the billions of bits of info on the internet, the last 2 calls on May 15th is probably the most important and valuable things on the internet to this very day. Thank you to Aaron, Gus, Carol, Kevin, and everyone involved on the calls. My consciousness and knowledge has been expanded 100 years in just one day from listening to just those 2 calls. These past 2 audios are the most important thing that has happened to me in my life. Love and peace to all my brothers and sisters forever.
Yeah, I thought that was a really constructive program. Hello to I forget the name of the person. Was it Reality Beyond Reality host?
You can just call me Aaron.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, it was a really great program. I listened to the archives. Very constructive. It's kind of hard to talk to white people, I guess, but it's very constructive if you know what to look for.
For those of you that run internet shows regarding racism and white supremacy, do you find it, or when you first started, did you find it to be intimidating or scary at all? I'm being pressured and I'm scared.
I can speak for myself. When we first started, I didn't really know what to. I'm thinking 2007, when the cows first started. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really think non-white people would be listening, or not very many anyway. So I didn't know what to expect. And when the white terrorism struck, it was like, whoa! I can't believe this is happening. Why are they doing this? Like, I just was not, connecting the dots that white people will get angry if you go out and talk about racism, white supremacy, and they might even harm you. So I was not prepared. I was just thinking that we'll do our thing, and nobody will really be listening. Nobody will really be paying attention to us. It won't really have that much of an impact. Like, I didn't really have that much regard for what we were doing. I wasn't even saving archives of the programs. If it wasn't for Mr. Williams, I wouldn't have any of the first set of episodes that we were doing back in 2007, Mr. Edward Williams at Counter Racism. So I guess that would be lesson number 1. If you're doing counter racism work, take it seriously, value what you are doing. As I've been saying more recently, many people have died just talking about racism. So definitely take it seriously. When it started back in 2009, I had that in mind, so I was taking it more seriously. It's definitely challenging, I will say that. I don't know, you said intimidating or scary.
Scary.
It's definitely challenging. I wouldn't say scary. I don't find, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it's just talking on the phone. I don't know if that's scary, but I will say it's challenging because you don't know how people will receive the information. It's difficult to gauge what impact you're having, if any. If you're adding to confusion, if what you're doing is clear, if people will hear it and get what you were attempting to convey. Sometimes people, you could have 100 people who could listen to the same program and come away with 100 different messages. So it's challenging, I would say. It can be intimidating to get on and to confront white people, even over the phone. That can be intimidating, but, at the end of the day, I think when you get more comfortable speaking publicly about racism, that tends to subside. And plus, you just know what to look for. You kind of know what to expect. So I think, for me, not so much scary. It can be, definitely is challenging, can be intimidating, but I think it subsides after you get a few reps in and you know what to expect. Plus, once you've had an error or two, you messed up, didn't do the correct thing, and you live to tell about it, you get on, do the next program, it goes away. So, yeah, it's not that big. Nothing compares to being a victim on the plantation. Once you keep that in mind, it will help you stay focused and, be no big deal.
I think you and Cree have set the bar so high, though, as far as structure and content. So that's one of the things that intimidates me, like thinking about planning a program and presenting quality content, staying focused, monitoring the call, and you know what I mean, moderating that whole thing, like presenting quality, because whatever you do, you hope that it's constructive, and then fielding calls. Like, I thought if I could just talk and not take callers, or maybe interview people and not do calls right away, maybe that would be easier. But I've listened to other programs where within the first 5 minutes before the guests come on, they have callers come in, and it kind of throws the focus off. And I guess I'm used to the C.O.W.S format. But, I've noticed the way that you all structure your programs. And, in listening, sometimes you think, well, how would I handle that? But you want to bring fresh content, stuff that's constructive and will inform people. And I guess for me, it seems like a lot of responsibility, and it's something I've never done. And I don't want to just talk like I'm talking on the phone, but I want to bring things to people that will help them. Maybe I'll have to do a practice run or two and see how I like it.
You don't have to take calls. It's one thing I keep in mind. It's your program at the end of the day. Like, just keep that in mind. You're the host. You're supposed to be in charge, so you don't have to take calls. I have consistently believed that, callers can add great perspective to get, different voices, and, people will often have different questions or just a different way of thinking about things. It's always great to get additional perspectives, but the flip side is that a lot of times the callers, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they might be confused. Sometimes it might be a racist. You never know what you're going to get when you go to the phone line. So you don't have to always take callers. You can put them at the very end. That way, you can at least manage how much time you'll devote to going to the phone lines. You can already kind of set aside when you want to go to the phone lines. And if they get on the phone and start acting crazy, use your mute button. I'm a big fan of using the mute button if people are acting nutty and being disruptive. Like, that's one of the things. It makes it very difficult for me to listen to programs, period. But especially when callers just get to dial in and take over programs. And I hear that a ton where, there was a guest, an invited guest, and I was listening to them, and then it would be a caller, and they'll dial in and be talking about something that is totally irrelevant, or at least not related to what the topic of the program was supposed to be, and they'll take over and talk for 10, 15 minutes. And it's just like, man, what is going on here? Like, this is not your program. Ask your question and let's keep it pushing. So I would just say, remember, you are the host. You're ultimately in charge of what happens on the program. Use your mute button, and you don't have to take calls. If you just want to talk until you can get comfortable dealing with things, you can do that. But, you're the host. Whatever you want, if you feel like it's not going the correct direction, you're the person who has the most direct power to change that.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Righto. Alrighty. We did a little overtime and everything. We will be back tomorrow evening. tomorrow evening, that would be Sunday, May 20th, Joris DeBreeze joining us live from New Zealand. We'll get to compare and contrast white people again. Hope the broadcast was constructive. Good to see the folks in the chat room. Sir Anton et al. His website, cafepress.com, constructive concepts. Cafepress.com, constructive concepts. TrojanHorse1.com, Pam's website, TrojanHorse1.com. Mr. Aaron Berg, the Reality Unknown broadcast here at TalkShoe. You can, I'm sure you can just go to TalkShoe and search for that, Reality Unknown. It'll pop up. Mr. Berg, do you want to give him the call ID?
Oh, sure. It's 67971, or you can go to my website, realityunknown.com.
Outstanding. Realityunknown.com. Let's see, anybody else that I miss? Pumpkin, you want to give them website?
ebonynewschannel.blogspot.com, and I will be moving to a domain name shortly once I get everything transferred. You can also find Ebony News Channel on YouTube.
ebonynewschannel.blogspot.com. Good hearing from everyone. I didn't make time. The Omar Thornton clip at the beginning of the program, that was in the last 7 days, where white people were upset about Omar Thornton, the victim in Connecticut, who felt he was a victim of racism on the J.O.B. and resorted to counter-violence and neutralized 8 white people, racist suspects. White people are upset that his mother has established a website and a fund seeking donations to combat racism. If you check out the website, it says institutional racism harms, and she's got different content and all that. White people are furious about this. There are a litany of trifling comments on the site that has the direct story talking about this. I played the audio at the beginning of the program. I was going to share a few of the comments. If I can pull it up really quick on my page, I'll share a few of those before we sign out. If anybody on the line would like to do the prayer to conclude, you can be thinking of that while I'm sharing a few of the comments. I definitely wanted to get these in because, man, just anytime you get to hear directly from white people what they really think about black people, man, take advantage. Okay, so the title of this article is, taking a sec for my webpage to pull up, Mass Killer's Mother Angers Victims' Families with Fund. And this was just from this week. It's on current.com. COURANT.com. Current.com. Folks in the Connecticut area. I'm not reading the article. You can do that on your own. I'm just scrolling down to read some of the comments. Let's see. She lost her son. He ruined her life as well as the families of his victims. But to use the words "my son" and "honor" in the same breath is downright batshit effing crazy. His ashes belong in a feral cat litter box. Next comment. Oh, wait a minute. This is in reply to that. That's an insult to those feral cats. Next comment. Hope the brewing company takes the family to court for her continued accusations of racism, even after it has been proven that there was no racism in the workplace. Her son was a thief caught on tape stealing and selling beer and a murderer of 8 innocent people. The only racist was the black murderer who targeted white coworkers because they were white, killed them, and then told the police he wished he had killed more people. Next comment. Stupid, ignorant woman obviously taught Omar everything he knew. Let's see. Next comment. If mommy had provided a more stable home for her misbegotten sons, she wouldn't have turned out a thieving, cowardly murderer and a sex offender. Next comment. Mass murderer. Get out of here. Completely insane, just like her screwy kid. This is why this country is a screwed up entitlement. Are you kidding me? What a worthless wretch she is. She sets up a memorial fund not for the victims, but for the depraved son she raised. She'll probably take any money received and embezzle it and buy clothes and shoes with it. Gee, I wonder where he learned his stealing ways. She is a scourge. She should have had an abortion. Actually, her mother should have had an abortion. Let's see. It's quite a few. I'll read one more. It's apparent how this murderer was raised. Blame the world for your bad choices. His own mother is doing the same thing, looking for something or someone to blame instead of her own son. The only blame lies with your son. Your son chose to bring a gun to work. Your son chose to pull the trigger. Your son chose to kill 8 defenseless people. Life is about choices. Your son made the wrong choice. Accept it and move on. Choose to stop with your ignorance so all the families may have some closure, including yourself, and let the innocent rest in peace. It goes on. There are tons of comments. It looks like a lot of white people had much to say about all this tacky, trifling behavior through and through. Again, the title, if you want to check it out yourself, Mass Killer's Mother Angers Victims' Families with Fund. And this is Omar Thornton, the Counter Violence Act in Connecticut back in 2010. This would be a cowbell too, unfortunately. He was in a tragic arrangement with a white person. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning into the broadcast. Hope it was a constructive investment of your Saturday evening. And again, thanks to 304 for the investment, helping us to keep the simulcast at blacktalkradionetwork.com. I know that is a benefit to a lot of people who listen to the program. Did anyone listening want to do the prayer to wrap us up for the evening? Any takers? Any takers? Alrighty, I assume nobody wants to do. Okay. Let's see here. We'll read one of prayers we got from one of our victims who wrote in. Alrighty. I hope people are reading, before I get to the prayer, I hope people are reading Marimba she's chapter 2 is Religion and White Supremacy. This coming Friday, 100 to 150. I hope people are reading. As I said, I think about the first 100 or so pages, you're going uphill. After that, it is downhill. And I'm telling you, and religion, how much time we spent talking about that area of activity on the program this evening, I am certain a lot of folks will appreciate and relate to what she has to say about religion in chapter 2. Religion as a weapon for racist man, racist woman. Definitely be prepared for this Friday. It would be great. We could hear from different folks and what they thought about pages 100 through 150 in Dr. Marimba Ani's Yorugu. Hopefully we can make that happen this coming Friday. All right, the prayer. O Creator Supreme, who is blacker than a million midnights, we call upon you for guidance, direction, and protection. May the force of the Creator Supreme within us guide us to victory over racist man, racist woman, and the global system of racism, white supremacy. We affect and enforce the Creator Supreme's plans and purposes over and against the plans and purposes of racist man and racist woman. We declare that this war against the satanic system of racism, white supremacy is our absolute reality. We place upon us the armor of compensatory logic, which will destroy and cut out racist man, racist woman from the face of the earth. We declare that racist man and racist woman are our open enemy. We pray and work for justice in the earth and universe. We strive to produce constructive speech, thought, and action for the benefit of the universe. O Creator Supreme, who is blacker than a million midnights, we call upon you for guidance, direction, and protection. Ashe. We will be back tomorrow. Black as well, his website, depressionmymuse.wordpress.com, depressionmymuse.wordpress.com. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Context of White Supremacy, signing out. Thank you all for tuning in.